Hey guys, tonight we begin with something surprisingly civilized, surprisingly organized, and surprisingly mundane. The world's oldest profession, as it's often called. But we're not talking about the salacious details or the moral debates. We're talking about the business side, the architectural side, the surprisingly bureaucratic side of ancient brothels. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Picture this. You're walking through the dusty streets of ancient Babylon, sandals clicking against worn stone, when you notice something curious. A building with carefully maintained walls, organized rooms, and what appears to be a systematic approach to commerce. Not a market for grain or pottery, but something else entirely. Something that would become one of humanity's most persistent and carefully regulated industries across every civilization we know of. Tonight, we're exploring the institutional side of ancient sexuality. The zoning laws, the tax codes, the architectural standards, and the surprisingly complex social hierarchies that governed establishments, most historians prefer to gloss over in favor of more heroic narratives about wars and kings. But here's the thing about history. The mundane details often tell us more about how people actually lived than the grand gestures ever could. The story begins in the cradle of civilization itself, Mesopotamia, around 2400 BCE. But even then, this wasn't a new phenomenon. It was already ancient, already organized, already woven into the fabric of urban life so completely that Sumerian record keepers felt compelled to document it with the same methodical precision they applied to grain inventories and livestock counts. In the city of Uruk, dedicated to the goddess Ishtar, stood a temple complex that modern scholars call a Khartoum. This wasn't just a place of worship. It was a carefully structured institution with 3 distinct classes of women, each with specific roles, specific living arrangements, and specific access to different areas of the complex. The first class performed only sacred rituals within the temple itself. The second class had broader access to the grounds and served visitors in various capacities. The third class lived on the temple grounds, but was free to seek clients in the surrounding streets. This hierarchical system wasn't random. It reflected a sophisticated understanding of religious practice, economic opportunity, and social organization that would influence similar institutions across the ancient world for thousands of years. Each level had its own quarters, its own rules, its own economic arrangements. It was, in essence, one of humanity's earliest examples of regulated service industry management. But let's be clear about something. The religious aspect of this arrangement has been heavily debated by modern scholars. What ancient Greek and Roman writers described as sacred prostitution may have been misunderstood or exaggerated for political reasons. The reality was likely more nuanced, more practical, and certainly more boring than the sensationalized accounts would suggest. The goddess Ishtar, later known as Inanna in different regions, was associated with fertility, war, and political power. Her temples served multiple functions in urban society. They were centers of religious worship, certainly, but also economic hubs, social gathering places, and repositories of cultural knowledge. The women who served in these temples weren't necessarily engaging in what we would recognize as prostitution. Many were priestesses, administrators, musicians, dancers, and craftswomen whose duties extended far beyond any single activity. This complexity is important because it shows us how ancient civilizations approached sexuality and commerce very differently than we might expect. There wasn't the same separation between sacred and secular activities that characterizes modern Western thought. Religious observance, economic activity, and social interaction were all interconnected aspects of daily life. Archaeological evidence for identifying these ancient establishments presents fascinating challenges for modern researchers. Buildings used for various forms of sexual commerce often looked exactly like ordinary residences or general commercial structures. A building might serve multiple purposes throughout its existence, with prostitution being only one activity among many. This makes definitive identification extremely difficult, meaning much of our understanding comes from written records, legal documents, and educated interpretation rather than obvious architectural evidence. The legal frameworks surrounding these establishments were surprisingly detailed. Mesopotamian law codes, including the famous Code of Hammurabi from around 1754 BCE, contain specific regulations about disputes involving what we would now call sex workers. If someone's actions caused damage to another person's business, restitution had to be made. If honey was stolen, which was apparently a valuable commodity in these establishments, replacement had to be provided, sometimes in silver or other goods. The fact that these legal codes devoted specific attention to protecting commercial sexual activity tells us something important about how these societies viewed such work. It wasn't hidden or stigmatized in the way it would be in later cultures. It was simply another form of commerce that required regulation, taxation, and legal protection like any other business. The economics were equally systematic. Mesopotamian texts describe women called harimtu, who worked primarily in taverns. These weren't necessarily dedicated brothels, but establishments that combined drinking, dining, and companionship services. Inanna and Ishtar served as patron deities of taverns and their inhabitants, which suggests these businesses enjoyed divine protection and cultural acceptance. These tavern-based workers operated in what we would recognize as a hospitality industry. They served travelers, merchants, and local clientele in establishments that provided multiple forms of entertainment and comfort. The taverns themselves were important social centers where people gathered to share news, conduct business, and enjoy leisure time together. Moving westward along ancient trade routes, we encounter a civilization that approached sexuality and commerce quite differently. Ancient Egypt, with its complex religious beliefs and relatively progressive attitudes toward women's rights, presents a more puzzling picture when it comes to organized prostitution. Egyptian records contain surprisingly little explicit evidence of brothels or commercial sex work, as we understand it. This absence might reflect different social attitudes, better integration of sexual expression into mainstream culture, or simply gaps in the historical record. What we do have are depictions of female entertainers at banquets, dancers and singers whose exact status remains unclear to modern scholars. Egyptian women enjoyed far more legal rights compared to their neighbors. They could own property, conduct business, initiate divorce, and work in various trades. There was no formal marriage ceremony. Couples simply began living together, though monogamy was expected and encouraged. This greater gender equality may have reduced demand for commercial sexual services, or it may have made such practices less visible in official records. The Egyptian approach to sexuality was notably different from many other ancient cultures. Sex wasn't inherently taboo or associated with guilt. Egyptians viewed sexual expression as a natural part of life, integrated into their mythology, religion, and daily activities. This more open attitude may have meant that commercial arrangements were less stigmatized and therefore less documented as separate social phenomena. Some artistic evidence does suggest forms of commercial sexuality existed in Egypt. The Turin erotic papyrus depicts women, possibly prostitutes, engaged in sexual activities. Permanent body decorations like tattoos in diamond patterns on thighs, or images of the god Bes, appear on figurines and mummies of what scholars believe were professional entertainers. These artistic depictions hint at commercial sexuality, but don't provide clear evidence of organized brothel systems. The cult of the goddess Isis incorporated elements that some scholars interpret as sacred sexuality, but But modern research suggests these claims are largely based on misunderstandings or later Roman propaganda rather than contemporary Egyptian evidence. The idea that Isis spent time as a prostitute in Tyre or that her temples were located near brothels appears to be myth rather than historical fact. This brings us to one of the most sophisticated and well-documented systems of organized prostitution in the ancient world. Ancient Greece, particularly Athens, developed an approach to commercial sexuality that was both highly regulated and surprisingly integrated into mainstream urban life. The legendary Athenian lawmaker Solon, who laid foundations for democratic government, also recognized the economic potential of what he diplomatically called public affairs. In the 6th century BCE, he established state-regulated brothels with fixed, reasonable pricing. One session cost 1 obol, which was 1/6 of a drachma, or roughly a day's wage for an ordinary laborer. Solon's system was explicitly designed to democratize access to sexual services. Rather than allowing such commerce to operate in an unregulated market where prices might fluctuate wildly, he created standardized establishments with predictable costs. This wasn't just economic policy, it was social policy, aimed at reducing inequality and preventing the kind of social unrest that might arise from unequal access to what Greeks considered basic urban amenities. The profits from these state-operated establishments funded the construction of a temple dedicated to Aphrodite Pandemos, goddess of sexual pleasure. This integration of commercial sexuality with religious dedication shows how Greek society viewed such services as legitimate aspects of urban life, rather than shameful activities to be hidden or condemned. The Greek system included multiple categories of workers with varying degrees of status, autonomy, and earning potential. At the top were the hetairai, educated companions who cultivated intellectual and artistic abilities that exceeded those of most Athenian women. These elite courtesans served wealthy and powerful men not just as sexual partners, but as conversationalists, cultural critics, and social advisors. Archaeological evidence from Athens reveals the quality of facilities provided in some of these establishments. Excavations in the Ceramicus district uncovered what scholars describe as a relatively luxurious establishment, with garden courtyards, mosaic floors, bath facilities, and dining rooms. This evidence suggests that at least some brothels catered to wealthy clientele and provided amenities comparable to the best private residences of the time. The economic aspects of Greek prostitution were carefully integrated into the broader urban economy. Athens collected taxes from both male and female sex workers through a levy called pornikon telos. This taxation system shows how prostitution was treated as a legitimate business activity, subject to the same regulatory framework as other commercial enterprises. Male prostitution was also significant in Greek society, reflecting broader cultural attitudes towards sexuality and social relationships. Adolescent boys often worked in specialized establishments, though freeborn young men who sold sexual services risked losing their political rights as adults. This distinction between enslaved and free workers was crucial in determining long-term social consequences. But perhaps nowhere was the integration of sexuality, commerce, and religion more apparent than in Corinth, a city that became synonymous with sophisticated pleasure throughout the ancient world. Corinth's Temple of Aphrodite allegedly employed over 1,000 women in various capacities, though modern scholars question whether these numbers were accurate or exaggerated for rhetorical purposes. The sheer scale described by ancient sources like Strabo seems physically improbable given the archaeological evidence available today. There simply isn't evidence of facilities large enough to house thousands of people in the manner described. This suggests that contemporary accounts may have been exaggerated to emphasize Corinth's reputation for luxury and decadence rather than to provide accurate census information. What seems more likely is that Corinth developed a sophisticated entertainment district that combined religious observance, cultural activities, and various forms of hospitality, including sexual services. The city's strategic location at the narrow isthmus connecting northern and southern Greece made it a natural stopping point for travelers, merchants, and pilgrims, creating steady demand for all kinds of services. The economic success of Corinth's entertainment industry wasn't just about individual transactions. It was about creating an entire ecosystem of interconnected services. Travelers arriving by ship needed places to stay, food to eat, entertainment after long journeys, and companionship in a foreign city. The establishments that provided these services weren't necessarily specialized brothels in the modern sense, but rather comprehensive hospitality venues that addressed multiple needs simultaneously. This brings us to what might be the most extensively documented and systematically organized approach to commercial sexuality in the ancient world. The Roman Empire didn't just tolerate prostitution, it regulated, taxed, and integrated it into urban planning with characteristic Roman efficiency and attention to detail. Roman brothels operated under official terminology that reveals how deeply embedded these institutions were in legal and social frameworks. The most common term was lupanar or lupinarium, derived from lupa meaning she-wolf, which was slang for a common prostitute. Another term, fornix, referred to the vaulted spaces or cellars where such establishments often operated. Interestingly, our modern word fornication derives directly from this Latin term, showing how Roman concepts of commercial sexuality influenced language for centuries. The geographic distribution of Roman brothels followed clear urban planning principles. According to official city records called regionaries, lupinaria were concentrated in specific districts, particularly Region 2 of Rome. This area included the Caelian Hill, the Subura neighborhood that bordered the city walls, and the valley between the Caelian and Esquiline hills. The same district housed the Great Market, numerous cookshops, stalls, barbershops, the office of the public executioner, and barracks for foreign soldiers stationed in Rome. This clustering wasn't accidental. Roman urban planners understood that certain services naturally complemented each other. Soldiers, merchants, and travelers all represented potential clientele for multiple types of businesses. By concentrating these services in designated areas, city administrators could more effectively collect taxes, maintain order, and provide necessary infrastructure like water supply and waste management. The economic structure of Roman prostitution reveals a sophisticated understanding of market dynamics and pricing strategies. Throughout the empire, prices typically ranged between 1 and 25 asses, with an average transaction costing around 10 asses. This generated daily incomes of approximately 10 asses before fees paid to pimps or brothel operators, which was roughly twice the daily wage of a male laborer. In Pompeii, where volcanic ash preserved detailed evidence of daily life, prices ranged between 2 and 20 asses. These relatively high earnings suggest that sex work could provide significant economic opportunities for women in a society where such opportunities were otherwise limited. However, the earnings had to be weighed against the fees charged by operators and the various risks associated with the profession. Roman prostitution included various organizational structures that reflected different levels of autonomy and economic arrangement. Some workers were self-employed and simply rented rooms for their activities. Others lived with procuresses or madams called lainae, while some operated under management by family members. These arrangements often represented economic desperation rather than free choice, particularly for freeborn women who found themselves in dire financial circumstances. The famous brothel preserved at Pompeii provides our most detailed archaeological evidence of Roman commercial sexual establishments. Located approximately 2 blocks east of the Forum near the Stabian Baths, at the intersection of 2 narrow streets, this building represents what scholars call a purpose-built brothel, rather than a converted residence or multi-purpose structure. The Pompeii establishment consisted of 10 small rooms, 5 on each floor, accessed by a narrow corridor. Each room contained a stone bed covered with a mattress. and many featured erotic paintings on the walls that apparently served as advertisements or inspiration. The building's design prioritized function over comfort, with minimal space devoted to anything other than the essential commercial activities. What makes the Pompeii brothel particularly valuable for historians is the extensive graffiti left by clients, workers, and visitors. These inscriptions appear in Latin, Greek, and the local Oscan language, reflecting the cosmopolitan nature of Roman commercial centers. The multilingual environment tells us about the diverse backgrounds of both workers and clients in these establishments. The graffiti also reveals information about the social status of various participants through Roman naming conventions. Because Romans used specific naming patterns that indicated whether someone was freeborn, freed, or enslaved, scholars can analyze the demographic composition of brothel clientele and workers based on the names scratched into the walls. However, the working conditions revealed by archaeological and literary evidence were often harsh and exploitative. Whether enslaved or simply too poor to refuse work, prostitutes had little power to decline clients or negotiate terms. Violence from both clients and managers was common, including robbery, assault, rape, and sometimes murder. The legal status of sex work didn't provide protection from physical dangers or economic exploitation. These conditions highlight the vulnerable position of sex workers in Roman society, despite the official legitimacy of their profession. Legal acceptance didn't translate to social protection or personal safety, particularly for enslaved workers who had no legal recourse against mistreatment. Moving eastward across ancient trade routes, we encounter civilizations that developed very different approaches to organizing commercial sexuality. Ancient China created what might be the most culturally sophisticated courtesan system in world history, one that emphasized artistic and intellectual accomplishments alongside physical companionship. The origins of Chinese courtesan culture can be traced back to the spring and autumn period, roughly 771 to 476 BCE. During this era, kings and aristocrats commonly owned slave consorts whose primary functions were performing music and dance at court functions, while also serving their masters in more private capacities. This early system established foundations for what would evolve into a highly refined cultural institution over subsequent centuries. The first organized government-operated brothels in China were established during the spring and autumn period in 645 BCE by Guanzhong, a politician and chancellor of the state of Qi. Guanzhong proposed setting up brothels in designated urban areas with official administrative oversight. According to historical records, as many as 700 women were initially employed in these establishments. Guanzhong's motivation was primarily economic and political rather than social. The brothel system was designed to extract levies from prostitution businesses to finance military activities. Additionally, administrators could summon these workers to entertain visiting state dignitaries, making the establishments part of official diplomatic protocol. This integration of commercial sexuality into state finance and foreign relations shows how pragmatically Chinese officials approached what other cultures might consider purely private matters. The sophistication of Chinese courtesan culture increased dramatically during the Tang dynasty, roughly 618 to 907 CE. During this period, the courtesan system became institutionalized and gained greater visibility in Chinese society. The Ministry of Rites took responsibility for operating separate music and dance schools specifically designed to train courtesans in various artistic disciplines. Talented performers were selected from these schools to become court entertainers in the inner courts of imperial palaces. This selection process created clear career pathways for women who demonstrated exceptional abilities in music, dance, poetry, or other cultural arts. The most accomplished could achieve positions of considerable influence and wealth despite their technically low social status. The social stratification of Chinese courtesan culture was complex and sometimes contradictory. Social codes grouped all courtesans, musicians, actors, actresses, and prostitutes into what was called the Jianmen caste, meaning worthless people. This classification was hereditary, meaning children born to members of this caste automatically inherited the same low legal status regardless of their individual talents or accomplishments. Despite this official stigmatization, many courtesans achieved considerable cultural influence and economic success through their artistic abilities. The contradiction between legal status and practical influence created interesting social dynamics where officially despised individuals could wield significant cultural power through their artistic contributions and relationships with powerful patrons. High-level Chinese courtesans, known as geiji, were distinguished from common prostitutes primarily by their cultural accomplishments rather than their physical attributes. These women contributed significantly to the development of dance, poetry, painting, and other artistic traditions throughout Chinese history. During the Song and Tang dynasties, geiji performed poems as songs, helping to spread ancient Chinese poetry throughout the population. The emphasis on cultural refinement meant that elite courtesans were valued primarily for their artistic talents in singing, dancing, and literary arts. While they sometimes provided sexual services to clients, this wasn't necessarily their primary function or source of income. Many maintained long-term relationships with wealthy patrons that resembled marriage more than commercial transactions. The economic organization of Chinese prostitution varied considerably across different historical periods and political systems. From the Song through the Ming dynasties, government-operated and privately owned establishments existed simultaneously throughout China. This dual system allowed for both state regulation and private enterprise, creating competition that may have improved conditions and services. Early in the Qing dynasty, from 1651 to 1673 CE, the Manchu emperors Shunqi and Kangxi gradually abolished both local and imperial governmental involvement in operating prostitution establishments. For most of the Qing dynasty, prostitution in China became a private enterprise subject to local regulations rather than imperial oversight. The Ming dynasty established specific regulations and designated locations for courtesan activities that reveal sophisticated urban planning approaches. When Zhu Yuanzhang became the first Ming emperor, he made Jinling, present-day Nanjing, his capital city. During his reign, he established an entertainer's compound along the banks of the Xinhuai River, specifically for hosting public functions where courtesans were routinely summoned to perform music and dance. This official designation led to brothels congregating in the area throughout the Ming dynasty, and Qinhuai achieved renown as the Jinling pleasure hub. Meanwhile, nearby Yangzhou became known for its supply of what were euphemistically called thin horses, essentially girl slaves trained specifically for sale to wealthy households or entertainment establishments. This geographic concentration served multiple administrative purposes. It allowed authorities to monitor activities more easily, collect taxes more efficiently, and provide necessary infrastructure and services. It also created specialized entertainment districts that attracted visitors and contributed significantly to local economic development. Across the sea from China, Japan was developing what would become perhaps the most highly regulated and systematically organized approach to commercial sexuality in world history. The Japanese pleasure quarter system represented the culmination of centuries of experimentation with different ways to balance moral concerns, economic opportunities, and social control. The Japanese approach differed from Chinese, Roman, or Greek systems in its emphasis on complete spatial segregation and comprehensive regulation of every aspect of daily life within designated entertainment districts. Rather than integrating commercial sexuality into broader urban environments, Japan created separate worlds with their own laws, customs, and social hierarchies. These pleasure quarters weren't just collections of brothels. They were complete communities with their own shops, restaurants, theaters, tea houses, and residential areas. Workers, clients, and support staff all participated in elaborate social rituals that elevated commercial transactions into carefully choreographed cultural performances. The most famous of these districts, Yoshiwara in Edo, present-day Tokyo, operated from 1617 until 1958, making it one of the longest-running regulated prostitution districts in world history. The longevity of this system reveals something important about Japanese approaches to social organization and cultural continuity. But before we explore the intricate details of Japanese pleasure quarters, we need to understand how these various ancient systems influenced each other through trade, conquest, and cultural exchange. The story of ancient brothels isn't just about individual civilizations developing isolated solutions to common social needs. It's about ideas, techniques, and organizational structures spreading across continents through the same networks that carried silk, spices, and philosophical concepts. The archaeological evidence, legal documents, and literary sources we've examined so far reveal patterns that transcend individual cultures and time periods. Certain organizational principles, economic strategies, and social arrangements appear repeatedly across different civilizations, suggesting that human societies tend to develop similar solutions to similar challenges, regardless of their specific cultural contexts. These patterns tell us something fascinating about human nature and social organization. When societies reach a certain level of urban development and economic complexity, they tend to develop similar institutional responses to regulate activities that exist at the intersection of commerce, social relationships, and moral boundaries. The solutions might look different on the surface, reflecting local customs and religious beliefs, but the underlying structural approaches remain remarkably consistent. Trade routes served as highways for more than just goods and currencies. They carried organizational ideas, legal concepts, and social innovations from one civilization to another. A Roman merchant traveling to Alexandria might observe Egyptian approaches to regulating entertainment districts. A Chinese diplomat visiting Persian courts could witness different methods of taxation and licensing. These cultural exchanges influenced how different societies refined their own systems over time. The spread of religious ideas also shaped how different civilizations approached commercial sexuality. As Buddhism spread from India through Central Asia to China and Japan, it carried with it particular attitudes toward desire, attachment, and spiritual purity that influenced how these societies organized their entertainment districts. Similarly, the expansion of Christianity throughout the Roman Empire gradually changed legal and social attitudes toward practices that had been widely accepted for centuries. But perhaps more interesting than the similarities are the subtle differences that reveal how local cultures adapted universal human needs to their specific social contexts. Each civilization we've examined developed unique solutions that reflected their particular values, economic systems, and religious beliefs, while still addressing the same fundamental challenges of urban social organization. Consider how differently the Greeks and Romans approached the question of citizenship and social status. In Athens, freeborn men who engaged in prostitution risked losing their political rights, creating a clear distinction between acceptable and unacceptable forms of commercial sexual activity. Rome, by contrast, allowed men of any social status to engage prostitutes without moral disapproval, as long as they demonstrated self-control and moderation. These different approaches reflected broader philosophical differences about citizenship, virtue, and social responsibility. The Chinese system emphasized cultural refinement and artistic accomplishment in ways that Greek or Roman approaches did not. While a Roman prostitute might be valued primarily for physical attributes or availability, a Chinese courtesan achieved status through mastery of poetry, music, dance, and conversation. This difference reflected broader cultural values about education, artistic expression, and the relationship between physical and intellectual pleasures. Egyptian approaches, insofar as we can reconstruct them from limited evidence, seem to have integrated sexual expression more naturally into mainstream social life, rather than creating separate institutional frameworks. This integration may have reflected their more egalitarian attitudes toward gender relations and their less rigid separation between sacred and secular activities. These variations weren't just academic distinctions. They had real consequences for the people who worked in these establishments, the clients who patronized them, and the broader communities that hosted them. Different regulatory approaches created different opportunities for economic mobility, personal safety, artistic expression, and social integration. The architectural evidence also reveals fascinating patterns of adaptation and innovation. Roman engineers applied their characteristic systematic approach to brothel design, creating efficient layouts that maximize space utilization while providing adequate privacy and security. The Pompeii establishment, with its narrow corridors and small standardized rooms, reflects the same practical engineering principles that Romans applied to military barracks, apartment buildings, and commercial structures. Chinese pleasure quarters, by contrast, emphasized aesthetic beauty and cultural sophistication in their physical design. Gardens, courtyards, and artistic decorations created environments that supported the cultural activities that distinguished high-class courtesans from ordinary prostitutes. The architecture itself became part of the service being provided, creating spaces that elevated commercial transactions into cultural experiences. Greek establishments often incorporated religious elements into their physical design, reflecting the integration of sexual commerce with spiritual practice. The archaeological remains in the Ceramicus district of Athens show how luxury amenities like mosaic floors and bath facilities were combined with spaces for religious observance, creating environments that served multiple social functions simultaneously. The economic data we can extract from ancient sources reveals sophisticated understanding of market dynamics, pricing strategies, and revenue optimization. Roman records show clear awareness of how location, amenities, and service quality affected pricing structures. Establishments near military barracks or major markets commanded different prices than those in residential areas or religious districts. Chinese sources document how seasonal festivals and imperial visits affected demand for entertainment services, leading to sophisticated scheduling and resource allocation strategies. The Ministry of Rites maintained detailed records of performer availability and scheduling to ensure adequate coverage for official functions while allowing for private commercial activities. Greek taxation records show how civic authorities balanced revenue generation with social policy goals. The pornikon telos wasn't just a source of municipal income. It was a regulatory tool that allowed authorities to monitor and influence commercial sexual activity without prohibiting it entirely. These economic considerations weren't separate from social and cultural factors. Pricing structures reflected and reinforced social hierarchies. Legal frameworks created incentives for certain types of behavior while discouraging others, and taxation systems provided mechanisms for community oversight of private commercial activities. The legal frameworks developed by different civilizations also reveal sophisticated approaches to balancing individual rights with community interests. Mesopotamian law codes protected commercial sexual workers from fraud and violence, while also establishing standards for business practices and dispute resolution. These weren't crude regulatory approaches, but nuanced legal systems that recognize the complexity of human relationships and economic arrangements. Roman legal theory distinguished between different types of sexual commerce based on the social status of participants, the nature of the commercial relationship, and the context in which activities occurred. These distinctions had significant practical consequences for taxation, legal protection, and social mobility opportunities. Chinese legal codes evolved over centuries to reflect changing attitudes toward commercial sexuality, while maintaining consistency with broader philosophical principles about social harmony and moral cultivation. The tension between Confucian ideals of social order and Taoist acceptance of natural human desires created complex legal frameworks that attempted to reconcile competing values. The social hierarchies that developed within these establishments also reflect broader cultural attitudes toward work, status, and personal agency. In societies that emphasized individual achievement and social mobility, like classical Athens or Tang Dynasty China, talented individuals could sometimes transcend their origins to achieve considerable influence and wealth through commercial sexual work. In more rigid social systems, like the Roman Empire or medieval Japan, commercial sexual work might provide economic opportunities, but rarely offered pathways to genuine social advancement. These differences reflected broader cultural attitudes towards social change, personal merit, and the relationship between individual effort and collective welfare. The role of women in these systems varied dramatically across different civilizations and time periods. Some societies offered women relatively more autonomy and economic opportunity through commercial sexual work, while others created systems that were primarily exploitative and offered little genuine choice or protection. Understanding these variations helps us avoid oversimplified generalizations about ancient attitudes towards sexuality and commerce. Each civilization developed unique approaches that reflected their specific cultural values, economic systems, and social structures. What worked in one context might be completely inappropriate in another, and what seemed progressive by the standards of one era might appear regressive from a different historical perspective. The religious and spiritual dimensions of these establishments also varied significantly across different cultures. Some societies integrated commercial sexuality into their religious practices in ways that elevated such activities to sacred status. Others maintained strict separation between spiritual and commercial realms, while still tolerating or regulating commercial sexual activity. These religious attitudes weren't just abstract theological positions. They had practical consequences for how establishments operated, how workers were treated, how clients behaved, and how communities responded to the presence of commercial sexual activity in their midst. Buddhist influences in Chinese and Japanese pleasure quarters created emphasis on aesthetic beauty, artistic refinement, and philosophical contemplation that distinguished these establishments from purely commercial enterprises. The tea ceremonies, poetry competitions, and musical performances that characterized high-class courtesan culture weren't just entertainment. They were expressions of spiritual and cultural values that elevated commercial relationships into forms of artistic and intellectual exchange. Greek religious attitudes towards sexuality and divine pleasure created different types of spiritual integration, where commercial sexual activity might be understood as participation in cosmic forces of fertility and creative energy. The connection between Aphrodite and commercial sexuality wasn't just mythological decoration, but reflected genuine beliefs about the relationship between physical pleasure and spiritual well-being. Roman religious syncretism allowed for multiple approaches to the spiritual dimensions of sexuality and commerce, incorporating Greek, Egyptian, Persian, and local Italian traditions into flexible frameworks that could accommodate diverse beliefs and practices within a unified political system. The medical and health considerations associated with these establishments also reveal sophisticated understanding of public health challenges and practical solutions. Roman bath facilities attached to brothels weren't just luxury amenities, but served important hygienic functions that protected both workers and clients from disease transmission. Chinese medical traditions emphasized the connection between sexual health and overall physical well-being, leading to integration of therapeutic practices into courtesan training and establishment operations. The emphasis on moderation, balance, and seasonal harmony that characterized Chinese approaches to sexuality reflected broader medical theories about maintaining health through proper lifestyle choices. Greek medical theories about the relationship between physical pleasure and mental health influenced how some establishments approached client services and worker training. The idea that sexual satisfaction contributed to overall psychological well-being created different approaches to service provision than purely commercial models. These medical considerations weren't just individual health concerns, but community health issues that required collective solutions. Urban authorities had to balance individual privacy rights with public health responsibilities, creating regulatory frameworks that protected community welfare while allowing for personal choice and commercial activity. The educational aspects of these establishments also deserve attention. In many civilizations, high-class courtesans and prostitutes received training in arts, literature, music, and conversation that exceeded the education available to most women in their societies. These educational opportunities created pathways for intellectual and artistic development that might otherwise have been unavailable. Chinese courtesan training included instruction in classical literature, poetry composition, musical performance, and dance techniques that required years of dedicated study and practice. The most accomplished courtesans became cultural innovators who influenced artistic trends and literary developments throughout their societies. Greek hetairai were expected to participate in philosophical discussions, political debates, and cultural criticism at levels that required substantial education and intellectual sophistication. Some became influential advisors to political leaders and contributed to important historical developments through their insights and connections. Roman courtesans, particularly those serving elite clientele, needed to understand complex social protocols, political situations, and cultural trends that required continuous learning and adaptation. The most successful combined business acumen with cultural sophistication to build lasting careers and achieve economic independence. These educational opportunities weren't just job training, but represented genuine intellectual development that contributed to broader cultural advancement. Many innovations in music, dance, poetry, and visual arts emerged from or were refined within courtesan cultures before spreading to mainstream society. The international connections fostered by these establishments also played important roles in cultural exchange and diplomatic relations. High-class courtesans often served as intermediaries between different cultural groups, helping to facilitate communication and understanding between diverse communities. Foreign merchants, diplomatic envoys, and cultural visitors frequently encountered local courtesan cultures during their travels, creating opportunities for cross-cultural learning and exchange. These interactions influenced art, literature, music, and social customs as ideas spread along trade routes and diplomatic channels. The cosmopolitan nature of major entertainment districts, with their multilingual environments and diverse clientele, created unique spaces where different cultural traditions could interact and influence each other. These districts often served as laboratories for cultural innovation and social experimentation. Military connections also shaped how these establishments developed and operated. Roman brothels near military installations served soldiers who brought experiences and expectations from various parts of the empire, creating demand for diverse services and cultural accommodations. Chinese courtesan districts often hosted military officers and government officials whose careers took them to different regions, creating networks of cultural exchange that connected distant parts of the empire through shared entertainment traditions. Greek establishments served not only local clientele, but also visitors from throughout the Mediterranean world, creating international reputations for certain cities and districts that influenced trade patterns and cultural relationships. These military and political connections weren't just incidental features, but fundamental aspects of how these establishments operated and evolved over time. They created pressures for standardization and innovation that shaped service provision and cultural development. The seasonal and cyclical patterns of demand also influenced how these establishments organized their operations. Agricultural societies experienced seasonal variations in wealth and leisure time that affected demand for entertainment services. Urban centers had different patterns related to trade cycles, religious festivals, and political events. Understanding these patterns allowed successful establishments to optimize their operations, adjust pricing strategies, and plan for periods of high and low demand. The most sophisticated operations developed complex scheduling systems that maximized revenue while providing adequate services during peak periods. Chinese records document elaborate preparations for imperial visits, religious festivals, and seasonal celebrations that required coordinated efforts among multiple establishments and service providers. These events generated significant revenue, but also required substantial advance planning and resource allocation. Roman establishments had to adapt to military campaign schedules, senatorial calendar cycles, and religious observances that created predictable patterns of demand variation throughout the year. Successful operators learned to anticipate and prepare for these cycles. Greek establishments coordinated with religious festivals, athletic competitions, and political events that brought visitors to their cities and created temporary increases in demand for various services. These cyclical patterns weren't just business considerations, but reflected the deep integration of commercial sexual activity into broader social and cultural rhythms. The establishments that thrived were those that successfully aligned their operations with the natural flows of community life rather than trying to operate independently of social contexts. The technological innovations developed within these establishments also contributed to broader technological and cultural advancement. Roman engineering techniques refined in brothel construction influenced residential and commercial architecture throughout the empire. Chinese artistic techniques developed in courtesan training programs influenced mainstream artistic traditions and contributed to the development of new forms of musical and literary expression. Greek approaches to interior design and decorative arts, refined in luxury establishments, influenced domestic architecture and decorative traditions throughout the Mediterranean world. These technological and artistic innovations weren't just incidental benefits, but represented systematic approaches to problem-solving and creative development that had broader applications beyond their original contexts. As we've seen, the story of ancient brothels isn't really about sexuality at all. It's about how human societies organize themselves to address complex social, economic, and cultural needs. It's about the development of legal systems, urban planning, artistic traditions, and international relations. It's about the endless human capacity to create institutions that balance individual desires with collective welfare, private interests with public good, economic opportunity with social stability. These ancient establishments were laboratories for social experimentation, cultural innovation, and institutional development. They created solutions to problems that every urban society faces: how to regulate commerce, how to manage social relationships, how to balance competing interests, how to maintain order while allowing for individual freedom. The lessons they offer aren't about the specific activities that took place within their walls, but about the broader principles of social organization and cultural development that they represent. They show us how human creativity and adaptability can transform basic biological and social needs into sophisticated cultural institutions that serve multiple purposes and contribute to the overall development of civilization. The innovations that emerged from these ancient entertainment districts extended far beyond their immediate purposes. The preservation techniques developed for cosmetics and perfumes in Egyptian establishments influenced mummification practices and medical treatments. The architectural ventilation systems pioneered in Roman brothels were later adapted for public baths, private residences, and commercial buildings throughout the empire. But perhaps most significantly, these establishments served as incubators for what we might recognize as early forms of customer service and hospitality management. The Greeks developed sophisticated approaches to client relations that emphasized repeat business and customer satisfaction over short-term profit maximization. This wasn't just good business sense. It was early recognition that sustainable commercial enterprises required building long-term relationships rather than exploiting immediate opportunities. The Romans took this concept further by developing what might be considered the first systematic approaches to service standardization. The consistent pricing structures, standardized facility layouts, and regulated service offerings found in Roman brothels represented early experiments in creating predictable commercial experiences that could be replicated across different locations and markets. These innovations in service delivery and customer relations weren't confined to the entertainment industry. They influenced tavern operations, retail commerce, and even government service delivery throughout the Roman world. The principles of clear pricing, consistent quality, and customer-focused service that were refined in brothels became standard practices in Roman commercial culture more broadly. The record-keeping practices developed in these establishments also contributed to broader advances in accounting and business management. Chinese courtesan houses maintained detailed records of performer schedules, client preferences, seasonal demand patterns, and revenue optimization strategies that influenced commercial practices throughout the empire. These records weren't just internal business documents. They became templates for organizing information in other industries and provided data that helped government officials understand economic trends, population movements, and social changes. The systematic approach to information management developed in entertainment districts influenced administrative practices in agriculture, manufacturing, and trade. Roman brothels contributed to legal and administrative innovation through their detailed documentation of contracts, dispute resolution procedures, and tax collection methods. The legal frameworks developed to govern these establishments provided precedents for regulating other forms of commerce and social relationships. The complexity of managing establishments that operated at the intersection of personal relationships, commercial transactions, and social regulations required sophisticated legal thinking that influenced broader developments in Roman law. Concepts of consent, contract enforcement, property rights, and dispute resolution that were refined in brothel regulation had applications throughout Roman legal systems. Greek establishments contributed to political and social theory through their experiments with democratic participation and collective decision-making. Some higher-class establishments operated as quasi-cooperative organizations where workers had input into operational decisions, pricing strategies, and working conditions. These experiments in workplace democracy provided practical experience with concepts of representation, collective bargaining, and shared governance that influenced broader Greek political developments. The idea that people affected by decisions should have input into making those decisions was tested and refined in entertainment districts before being applied to civic governance. The international nature of clientele in major entertainment districts also contributed to the development of diplomatic protocols and cross-cultural communication strategies. Establishments that served diverse clientele had to develop approaches to managing cultural differences, language barriers, and conflicting social expectations. These practical experiences in cross-cultural relations influenced how diplomats, merchants, and government officials approached international negotiations and trade relationships. The communication strategies and cultural sensitivity techniques developed in entertainment districts became models for broader international engagement. The seasonal migration patterns of entertainment workers also contributed to the development of labor mobility systems and regional economic integration. Chinese courtesans often traveled between different cities, following court schedules and festival calendars, creating networks of cultural and economic exchange that connected distant regions. These movement patterns required coordination between different local authorities, standardization of legal and commercial practices across jurisdictions, and development of transportation and communication infrastructure that supported broader economic development. Roman establishments that served military clientele had to adapt to deployment schedules and campaign cycles, creating flexible operational models that could expand and contract based on changing demand. These adaptive management strategies influenced how other businesses approach cyclical demand and resource allocation. Greek establishments that served maritime commerce had to coordinate with shipping schedules and seasonal trading patterns, developing logistics and supply chain management approaches that were later applied to other forms of international commerce. The health and safety innovations developed in these establishments also had broader applications. The Roman emphasis on bathing facilities and water management reflected practical understanding of disease prevention and public health that influenced urban planning throughout the empire. Chinese approaches to nutrition, exercise, and mental health maintenance that were developed in courtesan training programs contributed to broader medical traditions and influenced approaches to healthcare delivery for the general population. Greek understanding of the relationship between physical environment and psychological well-being, refined through attention to interior design and aesthetic considerations in luxury establishments, influenced architecture and urban planning throughout the Mediterranean world. These health and safety innovations weren't just luxury amenities but represented systematic approaches to maintaining human well-being that had applications in military settings, industrial operations, and residential communities. The artistic and cultural innovations that emerged from entertainment districts had profound influences on mainstream cultural development. Chinese opera, classical poetry, and traditional dance forms all show influences from techniques and styles that were developed and refined in courtesan culture. The emphasis on technical perfection, emotional expression, and audience engagement that characterized courtesan performances became standards for artistic excellence that influenced all forms of cultural expression. The training methods, performance techniques, and aesthetic principles developed in entertainment districts became foundations for entire artistic traditions. Roman approaches to theatrical presentation, interior decoration, and social entertainment that were refined in brothel settings influenced domestic culture, public celebrations, and civic ceremonies throughout the empire. The understanding of how physical environment affects mood and behavior that was developed in commercial entertainment influenced architecture, urban planning, and social event management. Greek contributions to literature, philosophy, and intellectual discourse that emerged from hetera culture influenced educational practices, political debate, and cultural criticism throughout the ancient world. The emphasis on wit, intellectual agility, and cultural sophistication that characterized high-class Greek courtesans became models for educated discourse more broadly. The economic theories and business practices developed in entertainment districts also contributed to broader commercial and financial innovation. The understanding of supply and demand dynamics, price elasticity, and market segmentation that was refined in commercial sexual enterprises influenced other forms of commerce and trade. The credit and payment systems developed to manage complex service relationships and seasonal cash flow variations contributed to broader developments in banking and financial services. The need to manage relationships between workers, management, clients, and government authorities created financial instruments and accounting practices that were later adapted to other industries. The insurance and risk management strategies developed to protect establishments from various forms of loss and disruption influenced broader approaches to commercial risk assessment and mitigation. The understanding of how personal relationships, reputation, and social standing affected business success contributed to early forms of what we might recognize as brand management and marketing strategy. The taxation and regulatory compliance systems developed for entertainment districts provided models for government oversight of other forms of commerce. The balance between revenue generation and social regulation that was achieved in brothel taxation influenced broader tax policy and regulatory approaches. The labor relations and workforce management practices developed in establishments that employed large numbers of people with diverse skills and backgrounds contributed to broader understanding of human resource management and organizational behavior. The training and professional development programs created for entertainment workers influenced educational practices and vocational training throughout ancient societies. The systematic approaches to skill development, performance evaluation, and career advancement that were pioneered in courtesan training became models for other professions. The customer service and relationship management techniques developed in entertainment industries influenced approaches to client relations in legal services, medical practice, and government administration. The understanding of how to build trust, manage expectations, and maintain long-term relationships that was refined in commercial entertainment had applications throughout society. The quality control and service standardization practices developed in entertainment establishments influenced manufacturing, crafts production, and service delivery across various industries. The attention to consistency, reliability, and customer satisfaction that characterized successful brothels became standards for commercial excellence more broadly. The facilities management and operational efficiency techniques developed to run complex entertainment establishments influenced approaches to managing other large-scale operations, like military installations, government buildings, and commercial enterprises. The security and safety protocols developed to protect workers, clients, and property in entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of risk management and protective services. The coordination between private security and public law enforcement that was necessary in entertainment districts provided models for broader approaches to public safety and crime prevention. The conflict resolution and dispute management techniques developed to handle the complex personal and commercial relationships that characterized entertainment districts influenced legal practice, administrative procedures, and social mediation throughout ancient societies. The information management and communication systems developed to coordinate activities across multiple locations, and service providers contributed to broader advances in administrative organization and business coordination. The cultural integration and community relations strategies developed by entertainment districts that needed to maintain acceptance within broader urban communities influenced approaches to minority group relations, immigrant integration, and social cohesion throughout ancient societies. The philanthropic and social welfare activities undertaken by successful entertainment establishments contributed to broader understanding of corporate social responsibility and community engagement. Many high-class courtesan houses and brothel operators became significant contributors to temple construction, public works projects, and charitable activities. These contributions weren't just attempts to improve public relations, but reflected genuine understanding that business success depended on community health and stability. The integration of commercial success with social responsibility that characterized the most successful entertainment establishments became a model for other forms of business leadership. The educational and cultural patronage activities undertaken by wealthy courtesans and brothel operators influenced broader patterns of artistic sponsorship and cultural development. The support provided to poets, musicians, artists, and scholars by entertainment industry figures contributed significantly to cultural advancement throughout ancient societies. The political influence and civic engagement of entertainment industry figures also contributed to broader understanding of how economic success could be translated into social and political impact. The most successful operators often became significant figures in local politics and regional governance, using their wealth and connections to influence public policy and community development. These political activities weren't just personal advancement strategies, but reflected sophisticated understanding of how private commercial success could contribute to broader social welfare. The civic leadership provided by entertainment industry figures became models for business community engagement throughout ancient societies. The international connections and cultural exchange activities facilitated by entertainment districts contributed to broader processes of globalization and cultural integration that characterized ancient trade networks. The cosmopolitan environments created in major entertainment centers became laboratories for cross-cultural understanding and cooperation. These cultural exchange activities weren't just incidental consequences of commercial operations, but reflected systematic approaches to building international relationships and promoting cultural understanding that influenced diplomatic practices and trade relations throughout the ancient world. The technological and architectural innovations developed in entertainment districts continued to influence building design and urban planning long after the original establishments had closed or been converted to other purposes. The principles of space utilization, traffic flow, privacy management, and environmental control that were refined in brothel design became standard features of commercial architecture. The engineering solutions developed to address the unique challenges of operating entertainment establishments, from water supply and waste management to lighting and ventilation, contributed to broader advances in urban infrastructure and building technology. The artistic and decorative techniques developed to create attractive and psychologically appealing environments in entertainment establishments influenced domestic architecture, public building design, and religious construction throughout ancient societies. As trade routes evolved and political systems changed, the organizational principles and cultural innovations that had been developed in ancient entertainment districts adapted and spread to new contexts and applications. The flexible, customer-focused, culturally sophisticated approaches that characterize the most successful establishments became templates for organizing various forms of service delivery and cultural activity. The emphasis on quality, consistency, and customer satisfaction that was refined in commercial entertainment became standard expectations for all forms of business activity. The understanding of how physical environment, personal relationships, and cultural context affected human behavior and satisfaction influenced approaches to workplace design, educational environments, and community planning. The integration of commercial activity with cultural expression, social responsibility, and community engagement that characterize the most successful entertainment establishments became models for sustainable business development that balanced profit generation with broader social contributions. The international perspective and cross-cultural competence that were developed in cosmopolitan entertainment districts became essential skills for success in trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange as ancient societies became increasingly interconnected. The systematic approaches to training, professional development, and career advancement that were pioneered in entertainment industries became foundations for education and workforce development throughout ancient societies. The customer service excellence and relationship management expertise that were refined in commercial entertainment influenced expectations for quality and professionalism in all forms of service delivery. The adaptive management strategies and operational flexibility that were developed to handle the complex, variable, and relationship-intensive nature of entertainment businesses became models for managing other forms of complex commercial and social operations. The risk establishments from various forms of disru management and crisis response capabilities that were developed to protect entertainment position and threat contributed to broader understanding of how to maintain operational continuity in uncertain environments. The financial management and resource optimization techniques that were developed to maximize revenue while maintaining quality and managing complex cost structures influenced broader approaches to business planning and economic development. The marketing and reputation management strategies that were developed to attract and retain clients in highly competitive entertainment markets became foundations for broader approaches to business promotion and brand development. The community relations and political engagement activities that were necessary for entertainment establishments to maintain social acceptance and regulatory compliance became models for corporate citizenship and stakeholder engagement throughout ancient commercial culture. These innovations and influences extended far beyond the ancient world, continuing to shape social organization, business practices, and cultural development throughout history. The principles of customer service, quality management, cultural sophistication, and social integration that were refined in ancient entertainment districts became enduring features of commercial culture that continue to influence how we organize and operate complex service businesses today. The legal frameworks, regulatory approaches, and administrative systems that were developed to govern ancient entertainment districts provided precedents and models that influenced legal and governmental development throughout subsequent history. The balance between individual freedom and social regulation, private enterprise and public oversight, economic opportunity and community welfare that was achieved in the best managed ancient establishments became templates for addressing similar challenges in other contexts and time periods. The cultural innovations, artistic developments, and educational practices that emerged from ancient entertainment districts contributed to the broader stream of human cultural development that continues to enrich and inform contemporary artistic, educational, and cultural practices. The architectural legacy alone tells a remarkable story of innovation and adaptation. Japanese pleasure quarters, which we haven't fully explored yet, represented the absolute pinnacle of systematic organization and spatial control. Beginning in the early 1600s with the establishment of Yoshiwara in Edo, Japan created what amounted to complete miniature cities dedicated entirely to entertainment and cultural refinement. Unlike the integrated approaches we've seen in other civilizations, where brothels and entertainment districts existed within broader urban environments, Japanese pleasure quarters were entirely self-contained. High walls surrounded these districts, with carefully controlled entry and exit points monitored by government officials. Inside these walls existed complete communities with their own shops, restaurants, theatres, tea houses, banks, and residential areas for workers, clients, and support staff. The level of regulation was extraordinary even by ancient standards. Every aspect of daily life within these quarters was governed by detailed rules and protocols. Prices were standardized and posted publicly. Working conditions were specified in contracts overseen by government administrators. Entertainment offerings were scheduled according to seasonal calendars and cultural festivals. Even clothing styles and personal behavior were regulated to maintain the sophisticated aesthetic that distinguished these establishments from more basic commercial ventures. The economic impact of these districts was substantial. Yoshiwara alone employed thousands of people directly and supported thousands more in related industries. Textile manufacturers, food suppliers, construction workers, artists, musicians, and various service providers all depended on the pleasure quarters for their livelihoods. The districts generated significant tax revenue while also serving as engines of cultural innovation and artistic development. The women who worked in these establishments, known as yujo, underwent years of training in classical arts, including music, dance, poetry, tea ceremony, and flower arrangement. The most accomplished could achieve celebrity status comparable to modern entertainment stars, with wealthy patrons competing for their attention and companionship. These relationships often resembled courtship more than commercial transactions, with elaborate gift-giving, artistic collaboration, and long-term emotional attachments. The cultural productions that emerged from Japanese pleasure quarters influenced mainstream Japanese culture profoundly. Kabuki theatre, ukiyo-e woodblock printing, and various forms of classical music and dance all show significant influences from techniques and styles developed in these districts. The aesthetic principles of elegance, refinement, and emotional subtlety that characterized pleasure quarter culture became defining features of Japanese artistic traditions. The seasonal rhythms that governed life in these districts created sophisticated cultural calendars that coordinated with broader Japanese society. Cherry blossom viewing in spring, summer festivals, autumn moon viewing, and winter celebrations all had special significance within pleasure quarters, with elaborate preparations and themed entertainments that attracted visitors from throughout Japan. The architectural design of these districts reflected sophisticated understanding of crowd control, traffic flow, and psychological atmosphere creation. Wide boulevards for parades and festivals connected to narrow, intimate streets for private encounters. Gardens and courtyards provided peaceful spaces for contemplation and conversation. Tea houses and performance venues offered various forms of entertainment suited to different moods and occasions. The lighting systems developed for these districts were particularly innovative. Before the introduction of gas and electric lighting, pleasure quarters used elaborate arrangements of lanterns, candles, and oil lamps to create atmospheric effects that enhanced the aesthetic experience. The interplay of light and shadow was carefully orchestrated to create romantic and mysterious environments that transported visitors into what felt like separate worlds. The waste management and sanitation systems developed for these densely populated districts were remarkably advanced. Underground drainage systems, regular waste collection schedules, and public bathing facilities maintained health and cleanliness standards that exceeded those found in many residential areas. These innovations contributed to broader urban planning knowledge that influenced city development throughout Japan. The security systems developed for pleasure quarters were equally sophisticated. Private guards worked alongside government officials to maintain order while protecting both workers and clients from various forms of threat and exploitation. Emergency procedures, conflict resolution protocols, and dispute mediation systems created relatively safe environments where complex personal and commercial relationships could develop without constant fear of violence or fraud. The education and training systems developed within these districts created pathways for social mobility that were unusual in Japanese society. While entry into pleasure quarter work often resulted from economic desperation or family arrangements, talented individuals could achieve significant wealth, cultural influence, and social recognition through excellence in their artistic and interpersonal skills. The retirement and transition systems developed for aging workers showed sophisticated understanding of career lifecycle management. Successful yujo could save money to purchase their freedom, establish their own businesses, or transition into roles as teachers and managers within the districts. Some married wealthy clients and achieved respectable social positions outside the pleasure quarters entirely. The international connections fostered by these districts also contributed to cultural exchange and diplomatic relations. Foreign visitors, including Dutch and Chinese merchants during Japan's period of limited international contact, often encountered Japanese culture primarily through pleasure quarter experiences, creating lasting impressions that influenced international perceptions of Japanese society. The artistic documentation of pleasure quarter life created vast archives of visual and literary material that provide detailed insights into daily life, social relationships, and cultural practices. These records became invaluable resources for understanding not just the entertainment industry, but broader aspects of Japanese society, economics, and cultural development. The influence of Japanese pleasure quarter culture extended well beyond Japan's borders through trade connections and cultural exchange. The aesthetic principles, service delivery approaches, and entertainment formats developed in these districts influenced similar establishments throughout East Asia, and eventually contributed to global understanding of hospitality and entertainment industry management. But even as these various ancient systems reached peaks of sophistication and cultural integration, they were all subject to the same forces of historical change that transformed other aspects of ancient society. Religious movements, political upheavals, economic disruptions, and cultural shifts gradually altered the context within which these establishments operated. The spread of Christianity throughout the Roman Empire created new moral frameworks that challenged previously accepted approaches to commercial sexuality. Early Christian communities developed alternative models for organizing social relationships and economic activity that emphasized different values and priorities than those reflected in traditional entertainment districts. The rise of Islam across the Middle East and North Africa brought different religious and legal perspectives that influenced how Muslim societies approached the regulation and organization of commercial sexual activity. Islamic law provided detailed guidance on marriage, divorce, and sexual conduct that created different frameworks for understanding legitimate and illegitimate forms of intimate relationships. Buddhist influences in East Asian societies emphasized concepts of desire, attachment, and spiritual purity that complicated the relationship between physical pleasure and religious development. While Buddhist societies didn't necessarily prohibit commercial sexual activity, they developed complex philosophical approaches to understanding its place within broader spiritual practice. The evolution of political systems from city-states to empires to nation-states created different regulatory environments and administrative approaches that affected how entertainment districts operated. Centralized authority systems could impose uniform standards across wide geographic areas, while decentralized political arrangements allowed for greater local variation in approaches and practices. Economic changes associated with the development of new trade routes, the introduction of new currencies, and the growth of different forms of commercial activity affected the economic foundation upon which entertainment districts depended. Changes in transportation technology, communication systems, and financial instruments all influenced how these establishments conducted their business. Technological innovations in construction, sanitation, lighting, and other infrastructure systems created new possibilities for organizing entertainment districts, while also changing the competitive landscape and customer expectations. The introduction of new materials, tools, and techniques allowed for more sophisticated facility design and service delivery. Cultural changes associated with literacy development, artistic innovation, and intellectual advancement affected the types of entertainment and cultural services that clients expected from high-class establishments. As general cultural sophistication increased, entertainment districts had to continuously innovate to maintain their competitive advantage and cultural relevance. Social changes related to women's roles, family structures, and individual rights created new contexts within which commercial sexual activity was understood and regulated. As societies developed different approaches to gender relations and personal autonomy, the legal and social frameworks governing entertainment districts had to adapt accordingly. Military changes associated with the professionalization of armies, the development of new weapons technologies, and the evolution of warfare strategies affected the client base and operational requirements of entertainment districts that served military personnel. Changes in military organization and deployment patterns required corresponding adaptations in entertainment industry operations. The gradual transition from ancient to medieval to modern society didn't happen overnight, and entertainment districts often served as bridges between different historical periods, preserving cultural traditions and social practices while adapting to new circumstances and requirements. Many of the organizational principles, service delivery approaches, and cultural innovations that were developed in ancient entertainment districts continued to influence social organization and commercial practice throughout subsequent historical periods. The emphasis on customer satisfaction, quality control, and cultural sophistication that characterized the most successful ancient establishments became enduring features of commercial culture. The legal and regulatory frameworks developed to govern ancient entertainment districts provided precedents and models that influenced legal development in other areas of commercial and social regulation. The balance between individual freedom and social control, private enterprise, and public oversight that was achieved in well-managed ancient establishments became a template for addressing similar challenges in other contexts. The urban planning and architectural innovations developed in ancient entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of how to organize complex urban environments that served multiple social and economic functions simultaneously. The integration of commercial, residential, cultural, and administrative activities within single districts became a model for comprehensive urban development. The international connections and cross-cultural exchange activities that characterized major ancient entertainment districts contributed to broader processes of cultural diffusion and globalization that continued throughout history. The cosmopolitan environments created in these districts became laboratories for developing approaches to cross-cultural communication and cooperation. The artistic and cultural innovations that emerged from ancient entertainment districts became part of the broader stream of human cultural development, influencing literature, music, dance, visual arts, and other forms of creative expression throughout subsequent history. The training methods, performance techniques, and aesthetic principles developed in these districts became foundations for entire artistic traditions. The economic theories and business practices developed in ancient entertainment districts influenced broader commercial development and contributed to the evolution of sophisticated market economies. The understanding of supply and demand dynamics, customer relationship management, and service quality optimization that was refined in these establishments became standard features of commercial culture. The social innovations and community relation strategies developed in ancient entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of how to integrate potentially controversial activities into mainstream community life while maintaining social harmony and collective welfare. The educational and professional development programs created in ancient entertainment districts influenced broader approaches to training, skill development, and career advancement that continued to shape educational and workforce development practices throughout history. The health and safety innovations developed in ancient entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of public health, disease prevention, and environmental management that influenced urban planning and community development practices. The technological and engineering solutions developed to address the unique challenges of operating ancient entertainment districts continued to influence building design, infrastructure development, and operational management throughout subsequent historical periods. As we trace these influences forward through history, we can see how the organizational principles, cultural innovations, and social solutions developed in ancient entertainment districts became part of the broader foundation of human civilization. The systematic approaches to service delivery, quality management, cultural sophistication, and social integration that were refined in these establishments became enduring features of human social organization. The legal frameworks, regulatory approaches, and administrative systems developed to govern ancient entertainment districts provided precedents and models that continued to influence legal and governmental development throughout subsequent history. The balance between individual rights and social responsibilities, private interests and public welfare that was achieved in well-managed ancient establishments became a template for addressing similar challenges in other contexts. The cultural innovations, artistic developments, and educational practices that emerged from ancient entertainment districts contributed to the broader stream of human cultural development that continues to enrich and inform contemporary cultural practices and institutions. The international perspective and cross-cultural competence that were developed in cosmopolitan ancient entertainment districts became essential capabilities for success in an increasingly interconnected world where cultural exchange and international cooperation became ever more important. The systematic approaches to training, professional development, and career advancement that were pioneered in ancient entertainment industries became foundations for education and workforce development that continue to shape how societies prepare individuals for productive and fulfilling careers. The customer service excellence and relationship management expertise that were refined in ancient commercial entertainment continue to influence expectations for quality and professionalism in contemporary service industries and business relationships. The adaptive management strategies and operational flexibility that were developed to handle the complex, variable, and relationship-intensive nature of ancient entertainment businesses continue to provide models for managing other forms of complex commercial and social operations in contemporary contexts. The community integration and social responsibility approaches that were developed by successful ancient entertainment establishments continue to influence understanding of corporate citizenship and stakeholder engagement in contemporary business culture. The emphasis on continuous innovation, cultural sophistication, and quality improvement that characterize the most successful ancient entertainment districts continues to influence contemporary approaches to business development, cultural institutions, and community organization. In this way, the story of ancient brothels becomes not just a historical curiosity, but a window into fundamental aspects of human social organization, cultural development, and institutional innovation that continue to shape how we organize ourselves and our communities today. The lessons these ancient establishments offer extend far beyond their immediate purposes to illuminate enduring principles of human cooperation, cultural creativity, and social adaptation that remain relevant across centuries and civilizations. The systematic documentation and analysis of these ancient institutions provides insights into how human societies develop solutions to complex social challenges. balance competing interests and values, and create institutions that serve multiple purposes while contributing to broader social and cultural development. The international scope and cultural diversity of ancient entertainment districts demonstrates the universal nature of certain human needs, and the remarkable creativity with which different societies develop culturally appropriate solutions to common challenges while contributing to the broader development of human civilization. As we settle into sleep tonight, we can appreciate how these ancient establishments, with their careful organization and systematic approaches, contributed to the development of the complex, interconnected, and culturally sophisticated world we inhabit today. Their legacy lives on not in the specific activities they housed, but in the principles of social organization, cultural innovation, and human cooperation they helped to develop and refine. The gentle hum of ancient commerce, the quiet efficiency of well-organized institutions, and the patient accumulation of cultural wisdom across generations continues to influence how we organize our communities, conduct our business, and create the cultural institutions that enrich our lives today. And perhaps there's something oddly comforting in knowing that thousands of years ago, people were grappling with the same fundamental challenges we face today, developing systematic solutions, creating cultural innovations, and building institutions that balanced individual needs with collective welfare, private interests with public good, and immediate practical concerns with long-term cultural development. Their quiet persistence in creating order from chaos, beauty from necessity, and lasting institutions from temporary needs continues to echo through the halls of history, reminding us that human ingenuity and cooperation can transform even the most basic aspects of life into foundations for cultural advancement and social progress. The innovations in hospitality and service management that emerged from these ancient establishments would seem remarkably familiar to anyone who has worked in modern customer service industries. The Japanese pleasure quarters, in particular, developed what might be recognized today as comprehensive customer relationship management systems, complete with detailed client profiles, preference tracking, and personalized service delivery protocols. Courtesans and establishment managers maintained meticulous records of client preferences, seasonal visiting patterns, gift-giving histories, and personal interests that allowed them to provide increasingly sophisticated and customized experiences. These records weren't just business documents, but represented early experiments in what we might now call data-driven customer service optimization. The seasonal menu planning that characterized high-end establishments also reveals sophisticated understanding of psychological and cultural factors that influence customer satisfaction. Spring offerings emphasized renewal and romance. Summer events focused on celebration and energy. Autumn activities highlighted contemplation and artistic appreciation, while winter services emphasized intimacy and comfort. This wasn't random seasonal variation, but carefully orchestrated emotional programming designed to align commercial offerings with natural psychological rhythms. The staff training programs developed in these establishments were equally sophisticated. New workers underwent months or years of preparation that covered not just technical skills, but emotional intelligence, cultural literacy, and interpersonal communication techniques. The most successful establishments understood that their primary product wasn't physical services, but emotional experiences, psychological satisfaction, and cultural enrichment. These training programs included instruction in reading client moods and preferences, managing difficult social situations, maintaining professional boundaries while creating genuine emotional connections, and adapting service delivery to accommodate diverse cultural backgrounds and individual personalities. The emphasis on emotional labor and psychological sophistication that characterized these programs influenced broader understanding of service excellence and professional development. The quality control systems developed in ancient entertainment districts also reveal remarkable attention to consistency and continuous improvement. Regular performance evaluations, peer feedback systems, client satisfaction monitoring, and systematic approaches to addressing service failures created operational standards that ensured reliable quality across different workers, locations, and time periods. These quality management approaches weren't just about maintaining minimum standards, but about continuously raising the bar for excellence and innovation. The most successful establishments created cultures of professional pride and competitive improvement that drove ongoing refinement of service delivery techniques and customer experience design. The financial management systems developed to handle the complex economic relationships within entertainment districts were equally sophisticated. Payment processing, revenue sharing, expense allocation, and profit distribution systems had to accommodate multiple stakeholders with different interests and contribution levels while maintaining transparency and fairness. The credit and financing systems that emerged to support these complex operations influenced broader commercial finance development. The need to manage seasonal cash flow variations, investment in training and facility improvements, and long-term relationship building created financial instruments and accounting practices that were later adapted to other industries, requiring similar financial flexibility and relationship management. The inventory management and supply chain coordination required to operate entertainment districts also contributed to broader developments in logistics and operations management. The need to coordinate food service, textile supplies, cosmetics and personal care items, entertainment props and costumes, and facility maintenance supplies across multiple locations and service providers created systematic approaches to procurement and inventory control. The communication systems developed to coordinate activities across large entertainment districts with multiple venues and service providers contributed to broader understanding of organizational communication and information management. The need to schedule performances, coordinate client appointments, manage worker assignments, and maintain service quality standards across complex operations required sophisticated communication protocols and information sharing systems. The conflict resolution and dispute management systems developed to handle the inevitable tensions and disagreements that arose within entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of organizational behavior and human resource management. The need to balance competing interests, manage personality conflicts, resolve financial disputes, and maintain operational harmony created systematic approaches to mediation and problem solving. The marketing and promotion strategies developed by entertainment districts to attract and retain clientele contributed to broader understanding of brand management and customer acquisition. The need to differentiate establishments in competitive markets, build reputation and credibility, and maintain customer loyalty created innovative approaches to advertising, public relations, and community engagement. The seasonal event planning and cultural programming that characterized major entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of entertainment industry management and cultural event production. The coordination of festivals, special performances, themed celebrations, and seasonal attractions required sophisticated project management skills and cultural programming expertise. The security and safety systems developed to protect workers, clients, and property in entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of risk management and protective services, the need to maintain order while preserving privacy, prevent violence while allowing passionate encounters, and protect vulnerable individuals while maintaining business operations created complex security challenges that required innovative solutions. The architectural and interior design innovations developed to create psychologically appealing environments in entertainment districts continued to influence commercial and residential design long after the original establishments had closed. The understanding of how lighting, color, texture, and spatial arrangement affect mood and behavior became fundamental principles of environmental psychology and design theory. The landscape architecture and garden design that characterized Japanese pleasure quarters, in particular, created sophisticated approaches to outdoor space design that influenced broader understanding of how natural elements could be integrated into urban environments to create peaceful and aesthetically pleasing spaces for relaxation and contemplation. The acoustic design and sound management techniques developed to create appropriate atmospheric conditions in entertainment venues contributed to broader understanding of architectural acoustics and environmental sound control. The need to provide privacy for intimate conversations while allowing for musical performances and social gatherings created complex acoustic challenges that required innovative architectural solutions. The climate control and environmental management systems developed for entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of indoor environmental quality and comfort management. The need to maintain comfortable conditions for people wearing elaborate costumes, engaging in physical activities, and spending extended periods in indoor spaces created requirements for ventilation, temperature control, and air quality management that influenced broader building design practices. The water management and sanitation systems developed for densely populated entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of urban infrastructure and public health management. The need to provide adequate bathing facilities, manage waste disposal, and maintain hygienic conditions for large numbers of people in relatively small spaces created engineering challenges that required innovative solutions. The fire prevention and emergency management systems developed for entertainment districts, with their combination of open flames for lighting, elaborate decorations, and dense populations, contributed to broader understanding of building safety and emergency response planning. The development of evacuation procedures, fire suppression systems, and crowd management protocols influenced broader approaches to public safety and emergency preparedness. The food service and hospitality management systems developed within entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of restaurant operations and hospitality industry management. The need to provide high-quality food and beverage service while maintaining the aesthetic and cultural standards expected in entertainment venues created operational challenges that required sophisticated culinary and service skills. The textile and fashion design innovations that emerged from entertainment districts influenced broader clothing and fashion industry development. The elaborate costumes, specialized fabrics, and innovative design techniques developed for entertainment purposes influenced mainstream fashion trends and contributed to textile industry innovation. The cosmetics and personal care product development that occurred within entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of beauty culture and personal grooming practices. The need to maintain attractive appearances under challenging conditions, create dramatic visual effects, and address the personal care needs of people engaged in physically demanding work created requirements for specialized products and techniques. The pharmaceutical and health management systems developed within entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of occupational health and wellness management. The need to maintain worker health and address the specific health challenges associated with entertainment industry work created demand for specialized medical knowledge and health maintenance practices. The psychological and emotional support systems developed within entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of mental health and emotional wellness management. The recognition that emotional labor and interpersonal stress required systematic attention and support created early approaches to workplace mental health and emotional well-being that influenced broader understanding of occupational psychology. The educational and cultural programming that characterized high-end entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of adult education and cultural enrichment programming. The integration of artistic instruction, cultural activities, and intellectual development into commercial entertainment created models for lifelong learning and cultural engagement that influenced broader educational practices. The artistic collaboration and creative development that occurred within entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of creative industry management and artistic innovation. The partnerships between performers, visual artists, musicians, writers, and other creative professionals that characterized entertainment districts created models for collaborative artistic production that influenced broader cultural industry development. The international cultural exchange and diplomatic entertainment that occurred within major entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of cultural diplomacy and international relations. The role that entertainment venues played in facilitating communication between different cultural groups and supporting diplomatic activities influenced broader understanding of soft power and cultural influence in international affairs. The economic development and urban regeneration effects that entertainment districts had on their surrounding communities contributed to broader understanding of cultural economics and community development. The ability of well-managed entertainment districts to attract visitors, generate employment, and stimulate related business development created models for cultural tourism and entertainment-based economic development. The social integration and community-building activities that successful entertainment districts fostered contributed to broader understanding of social cohesion and community development. The ability of entertainment venues to bring together people from different social backgrounds and create shared cultural experiences contributed to broader understanding of how cultural activities can promote social integration and community identity. The preservation and transmission of cultural traditions that occurred within entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of cultural heritage management and traditional knowledge preservation. The role that entertainment venues played in maintaining artistic traditions, transmitting cultural practices, and adapting historical customs to contemporary contexts influenced broader approaches to cultural preservation and continuity. The adaptation and innovation in response to changing social, economic, and technological conditions that characterize successful entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of organizational resilience and adaptive management. The ability of these establishments to evolve their operations, service offerings, and business models in response to external changes created models for organizational flexibility and innovation management. The transition and transformation processes that occurred as entertainment districts evolved or closed contributed to broader understanding of economic transition and community adaptation. The ways in which communities and individuals adapted to the closure or transformation of major entertainment districts provided insights into economic diversification and social adjustment processes. The historical documentation and cultural memory preservation that occurred around entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of historical methodology and cultural studies. The rich documentation of daily life, social relationships, and cultural practices that was created around these establishments provided valuable resources for understanding broader patterns of social and cultural development. The comparative analysis and cross-cultural study of different entertainment district models contributed to broader understanding of comparative sociology and cultural anthropology. The similarities and differences between entertainment district development in different societies provided insights into universal and culturally specific aspects of social organization and cultural expression. The interdisciplinary research and scholarship that has emerged around the study of ancient entertainment districts has contributed to broader understanding of interdisciplinary methodology and collaborative research. The integration of archaeological evidence, historical documentation, sociological analysis, economic theory, and cultural studies that characterizes contemporary research on these topics has created models for comprehensive historical and social analysis. The public education and cultural interpretation activities that have developed around preserved entertainment district sites have contributed to broader understanding of public history and cultural tourism management. The challenges of presenting complex and potentially controversial historical topics in educational and tourist contexts have created innovative approaches to historical interpretation and public engagement. The ongoing relevance and contemporary applications of insights gained from studying ancient entertainment districts continue to influence current discussions about urban planning, cultural policy, social regulation, and economic development. The lessons learned from analyzing how ancient societies balanced individual freedom with social responsibility, private enterprise with public welfare, and cultural innovation with traditional values remain relevant to contemporary policy discussions and social challenges. The ethical considerations and moral questions raised by studying ancient entertainment districts continue to contribute to contemporary discussions about human sexuality, labor rights, gender equality, and social justice. The complex moral and ethical dimensions of commercial sexual activity, cultural expression, and individual autonomy that were evident in ancient contexts continue to inform contemporary debates about these issues. The methodological innovations and research techniques developed for studying ancient entertainment districts have contributed to broader developments in historical research methodology and interdisciplinary scholarship. The integration of material culture analysis, textual interpretation, social theory, and economic analysis that characterizes this research has influenced broader approaches to historical and social research. The preservation challenges and conservation efforts associated with protecting ancient entertainment district sites have contributed to broader understanding of archaeological preservation and cultural heritage management. The specific challenges associated with preserving and interpreting sites with complex and potentially controversial histories have created innovative approaches to heritage conservation and public interpretation. The technological applications and digital humanities, approaches that have been developed for studying and presenting information about ancient entertainment districts, have contributed to broader developments in digital scholarship and virtual cultural heritage. The use of virtual reality, digital reconstruction, and online educational resources to make these historical sites accessible to contemporary audiences has created new models for digital historical education and cultural engagement. The collaborative relationships and international partnerships that have developed around research on ancient entertainment districts have contributed to broader understanding of international scholarly cooperation and cultural exchange. The cross-cultural and interdisciplinary nature of this research has created models for collaborative scholarship that bridge national, cultural, and disciplinary boundaries. The funding mechanisms and resource development strategies that have been created to support research on ancient entertainment districts have contributed to broader understanding of humanities, research funding, and cultural research economics. The challenges of securing support for research on potentially controversial topics have created innovative approaches to research funding and public engagement that have broader applications for humanities scholarship. The training and professional development opportunities that have emerged around the study of ancient entertainment districts have contributed to broader understanding of interdisciplinary education and career development. The integration of historical, archaeological, sociological, and cultural studies perspectives that characterizes this field has created models for interdisciplinary training and professional development that have influenced broader educational practices. As we trace these various influences and applications forward into contemporary contexts, we can see how the systematic approaches to organization, management, and cultural development that were pioneered in ancient entertainment districts continue to inform and influence contemporary institutions and practices across a wide range of fields and applications. The emphasis on quality service delivery, customer relationship management, and continuous improvement that characterize the most successful ancient establishments has become standard expectations for contemporary businesses and service organizations. The understanding of how to balance individual needs with collective welfare, private interests with public responsibilities, that was developed in these contexts continues to inform contemporary discussions about business ethics and social responsibility. The approaches to training, professional development, and career advancement that were pioneered in ancient entertainment industries continue to influence contemporary educational and workforce development practices. The recognition of the importance of emotional intelligence, cultural competence, and interpersonal skills that characterize these training programs has become central to contemporary professional development across many fields. The systematic approaches to quality management, operational efficiency, and continuous innovation that were developed in ancient entertainment districts continue to influence contemporary organizational management and business development practices. The understanding of how to create and maintain high standards of performance while adapting to changing conditions and customer expectations remains relevant across many contemporary industries and institutions. The integration of cultural activities, educational programming, and community engagement that characterize successful ancient entertainment districts continues to influence contemporary approaches to cultural programming, community development, and social integration. The recognition of the importance of cultural activities in creating social cohesion and community identity has become central to contemporary urban planning and community development practices. The international perspective and cross-cultural competence that were developed in cosmopolitan ancient entertainment districts continue to be essential capabilities in our increasingly interconnected global society. The approaches to cross-cultural communication, cultural sensitivity, and international relationship building that were refined in these contexts remain highly relevant to contemporary international business, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. The adaptive management strategies and organizational flexibility that were developed to handle the complex and variable nature of ancient entertainment businesses continue to provide valuable models for contemporary organizations operating in rapidly changing and uncertain environments. The ability to maintain core values and service standards while adapting to new conditions and opportunities remains a critical capability for contemporary organizations. The community integration and stakeholder engagement approaches that were developed by successful ancient entertainment establishments continue to influence contemporary understanding of corporate citizenship and social responsibility. The recognition of the importance of maintaining positive relationships with surrounding communities and contributing to broader social welfare has become central to contemporary business practice and organizational management. And so, as the night deepens and these ancient voices fade into the gentle rhythm of historical continuity, we can rest knowing that human ingenuity and cooperation have been quietly solving complex social challenges for thousands of years. The careful organization, systematic thinking, and cultural sophistication that characterize these ancient establishments continue to influence how we organize our communities, conduct our business, and create the institutions that serve our collective needs. The patient accumulation of knowledge, the gradual refinement of practices, and the persistent effort to balance competing interests and values that characterize the development of these ancient institutions continues to guide our contemporary efforts to create effective, fair, and sustainable approaches to organizing human activities and relationships. The quiet efficiency of well-managed systems, the gentle persistence of cultural transmission, and the enduring human capacity to create order, beauty, and meaning from the basic materials of social life continues to echo through the corridors of history, reminding us that progress comes not through dramatic gestures, but through the patient accumulation of small improvements and the continuous refinement of human cooperation and understanding. The preservation of historical knowledge about these establishments often depended on the most mundane records imaginable: tax receipts, building permits, zoning disputes, and municipal ordinances, not the passionate love letters or dramatic confrontations that capture popular imagination, but the bureaucratic paperwork that tracked monthly revenues, seasonal staffing adjustments, and compliance with health regulations. In medieval European cities, guild records reveal fascinating details about the organization of what they diplomatically called public houses. The records don't dwell on scandalous activities, but focus instead on licensing fees, territorial boundaries, and quality standards. Establishments were required to maintain certain cleanliness benchmarks, provide adequate lighting, and employ workers who met specific health requirements. These weren't moral judgments, but practical business regulations designed to protect both workers and clients while ensuring steady tax revenue. The guild system also created professional development pathways that modern human resource managers would recognize: apprenticeship programs, skill certification requirements, and advancement criteria based on demonstrated competence rather than social connections. Women could achieve management positions and business ownership through these systematic career development structures, creating opportunities for economic independence that were rare in other medieval industries. Venice became particularly sophisticated in its approach to regulating these establishments. The city's famous pragmatism extended to creating detailed zoning maps that designated specific neighborhoods for different types of commercial activity. Entertainment districts were strategically located near merchant quarters and maritime facilities, but separated from residential areas and religious institutions. This wasn't prudish segregation, but practical urban planning that minimized conflicts while maximizing economic benefits. Venetian record-keeping was extraordinarily detailed, tracking not just revenues and expenses, but also demographic patterns, seasonal variations, and economic impacts on surrounding businesses. These records reveal that well-managed entertainment districts generated employment for hundreds of people in related industries, including food service, textile production, security services, and transportation. The international connections fostered by Venice's position as a major trading hub meant that its entertainment districts served clients from across the known world. This cosmopolitan environment required sophisticated approaches to cultural accommodation, language interpretation, and international payment processing. Venetian establishments developed early forms of what we might recognize as hospitality industry best practices, with standardized service protocols that could accommodate diverse cultural expectations and preferences. Medieval Islamic cities developed parallel systems that reflected different religious and cultural values while addressing similar practical needs. The Hisba system of market regulation included oversight of establishments that provided various forms of entertainment and hospitality services. These regulations emphasized fairness in pricing, honesty in advertising, and protection of vulnerable individuals while allowing for legitimate commercial activity within appropriate bounds. Islamic legal scholars developed sophisticated frameworks for distinguishing between acceptable and unacceptable forms of commercial entertainment, creating detailed guidelines that balanced religious principles with practical social needs. These legal discussions reveal remarkable attention to issues that modern societies would recognize as consumer protection, workers' rights, and public health considerations. The architectural innovations developed in Islamic entertainment districts reflected both practical needs and aesthetic values. Courtyards provided privacy while allowing for natural ventilation and lighting. Water features created pleasant acoustic environments while serving practical cooling functions. Gardens and decorative elements elevated commercial spaces into culturally enriching environments that served multiple social functions simultaneously. The educational components integrated into Islamic entertainment districts were particularly sophisticated. Many establishments included libraries, lecture halls, and performance spaces where scholars, poets, and musicians could share their work with appreciative audiences. These cultural activities weren't just entertainment, but represented serious intellectual and artistic engagement that contributed to broader cultural development. The patronage systems that developed around Islamic entertainment districts created sustainable funding mechanisms for artistic and intellectual activities that might not have been commercially viable on their own. Wealthy merchants and political leaders supported cultural programming that enhanced their communities while providing platforms for creative expression and intellectual discourse. Moving eastward along ancient trade routes, we encounter the remarkable sophistication of Indian approaches to organizing commercial entertainment. The ancient Indian treatise known as the Arthashastra contains detailed discussions of how rulers should regulate and tax various forms of entertainment establishments, while ensuring fair treatment of workers and protection of public welfare. The Arthashastra reveals systematic thinking about urban planning, economic regulation, and social organization that rivals anything found in contemporary Western political theory. Entertainment districts were understood as important components of urban economies that required careful management to balance competing interests and maximize benefits for all stakeholders. Indian approaches emphasize the cultural and artistic dimensions of commercial entertainment more explicitly than many other ancient systems. The integration of classical dance, music, poetry, and philosophical discussion into entertainment venues created environments that served educational and cultural functions alongside their commercial purposes. The caste system created complex social dynamics within Indian entertainment districts. but also provided structured pathways for professional development and social mobility within established frameworks. The most skilled performers could achieve recognition and patronage that transcended their original social positions, creating meritocratic elements within otherwise rigid social hierarchies. The seasonal and religious calendars that governed Indian society created predictable patterns of demand for entertainment services that allowed for sophisticated planning and resource allocation. Festival seasons brought increased activity and revenue, while religious observances created periods of reduced activity that allowed for facility maintenance, worker training, and preparation for upcoming busy periods. The medical and health traditions associated with Indian entertainment districts were particularly advanced. Ayurvedic principles influenced approaches to worker health maintenance, client wellness, and environmental management that created healthier and more sustainable working conditions than were common in many other ancient systems. The philosophical and spiritual dimensions of Indian entertainment culture created unique approaches to understanding the relationship between physical pleasure and spiritual development. Rather than viewing these as contradictory, Indian philosophical traditions developed sophisticated frameworks for understanding how various forms of human experience could contribute to overall personal and spiritual growth. The artistic training systems developed within Indian entertainment districts created comprehensive educational programs that produced performers whose skills influenced mainstream cultural development throughout the subcontinent. The classical dance forms, musical traditions, and poetic styles that emerged from or were refined within these districts became foundational elements of Indian cultural heritage. The patronage networks that connected Indian entertainment districts with royal courts, religious institutions, and merchant communities created stable funding sources that supported long-term cultural development and artistic innovation. These relationships weren't just commercial transactions, but represented complex social and cultural partnerships that benefited entire communities. The architectural and design traditions that developed within Indian entertainment districts reflected sophisticated understanding of acoustics, lighting, ventilation, and aesthetic psychology. Performance spaces were designed to optimize both performer capabilities and audience experience, creating environments that enhanced artistic expression while maintaining practical functionality. The integration of gardens, water features, and natural elements into Indian entertainment districts created peaceful and aesthetically pleasing environments that supported contemplation, relaxation, and cultural appreciation alongside more active forms of entertainment. As trade routes connected these various regional systems, ideas and practices spread and adapted across cultural boundaries. The Silk Road wasn't just a highway for goods, but a network for exchanging organizational innovations, architectural techniques, and management strategies. A Persian merchant might observe Chinese approaches to customer service, while a Roman trader could learn Indian methods of quality control. These cultural exchanges created hybrid systems that combined elements from different traditions while adapting to local conditions and preferences. The result was continuous innovation and improvement in approaches to organizing complex commercial and cultural activities. The monetary systems that developed to support international trade also influenced how entertainment establishments conducted business across cultural boundaries. Standardized currencies, credit arrangements, and international payment systems allowed for more sophisticated commercial relationships that transcended local economic systems. The diplomatic protocols that developed around entertainment of foreign visitors created international standards for hospitality and cultural exchange that influenced broader diplomatic practices. The entertainment districts of major trading cities became informal diplomatic venues where international relationships were built and maintained through cultural activities and personal interactions. The linguistic innovations that emerged from multilingual entertainment districts contributed to the development of trade languages and cross-cultural communication systems. The practical need to communicate with diverse clientele created vocabulary and communication techniques that influenced broader linguistic development. The legal frameworks that developed to govern international entertainment commerce contributed to broader developments in international commercial law and dispute resolution. The complex relationships between establishments, workers, clients, and government authorities from different cultural and legal traditions required innovative approaches to legal harmonization and conflict resolution. The transportation and logistics systems that supported entertainment district operations contributed to broader developments in urban infrastructure and regional economic integration. The need to move people, goods, and information efficiently between different locations created innovations in transportation planning and logistics management. The communication networks that connected entertainment districts across different regions contributed to broader developments in information management and long-distance communication. The need to coordinate activities, share market information, and maintain quality standards across wide geographic areas created early forms of business communication networks. The financial instruments and banking services that developed to support entertainment district operations contributed to broader developments in commercial finance and international banking. The complex financial relationships between establishments, workers, clients, and investors required innovative approaches to credit, insurance, and risk management. The insurance and risk management systems that developed to protect entertainment establishments from various forms of loss and disruption contributed to broader understanding of commercial risk assessment and mitigation strategies. The volatile nature of entertainment businesses created demand for sophisticated approaches to managing uncertainty and protecting investments. The quality assurance and standardization systems that developed to maintain service consistency across different locations and time periods contributed to broader understanding of quality management and operational efficiency. The need to ensure reliable service delivery while accommodating local variations and individual preferences created systematic approaches to quality control that influenced other industries. The customer feedback and service improvement systems that developed within entertainment districts contributed to broader understanding of customer relationship management and service excellence. The emphasis on client satisfaction and repeat business created systematic approaches to gathering and responding to customer input that influenced broader commercial practices. The competitive intelligence and market analysis activities that entertainment establishments used to understand and respond to competitive pressures contributed to broader developments in business strategy and market research. The need to differentiate services, identify market opportunities, and respond to competitive threats created early forms of strategic business analysis. The brand management and reputation maintenance strategies that successful entertainment establishments used to build and protect their market positions contributed to broader understanding of marketing and public relations. The importance of reputation and word-of-mouth recommendations in entertainment businesses created systematic approaches to brand building and reputation management. The crisis management and recovery strategies that entertainment establishments developed to handle various forms of disruption and crisis contributed to broader understanding of business continuity and crisis response. The volatile and relationship-dependent nature of entertainment businesses created demand for sophisticated approaches to managing and recovering from various forms of crisis. The succession planning and business transition strategies that long-term entertainment establishments use to maintain continuity across generations and ownership changes contributed to broader understanding of organizational succession and business transition management. The complex relationships and cultural traditions associated with these businesses required careful planning to maintain continuity and preserve value. The retirement and career transition systems that developed for aging entertainment workers contributed to broader understanding of career lifecycle management and workforce transition. The physically and emotionally demanding nature of entertainment work required systematic approaches to helping workers transition to other roles and activities as their careers evolved. The community outreach and social responsibility programs that successful entertainment establishments developed to maintain positive relationships with surrounding communities contributed to broader understanding of corporate citizenship and stakeholder engagement. The potentially controversial nature of entertainment businesses created strong incentives for community engagement and social contribution. The environmental management and sustainability practices that entertainment districts developed to minimize their environmental impact and maintain healthy operating conditions contributed to broader understanding of environmental stewardship and sustainable business practices. The dense populations and intensive resource use associated with entertainment districts created demand for innovative approaches to waste management, resource conservation, and environmental protection. The cultural preservation and heritage maintenance activities that entertainment districts undertook to preserve and transmit cultural traditions contributed to broader understanding of cultural heritage management and tradition preservation. The role that entertainment venues played in maintaining and adapting cultural traditions required systematic approaches to balancing preservation with innovation. The research and documentation activities that entertainment establishments undertook to understand and improve their operations contributed to broader developments in business research and organizational learning. The complex and relationship-intensive nature of entertainment businesses created demand for systematic approaches to understanding and improving operational effectiveness. The training and professional development programs that entertainment districts created for their workers contributed to broader developments in adult education and professional training. The specialized skills and knowledge required for successful entertainment work created demand for comprehensive training programs that influenced broader educational practices. The health and wellness programs that entertainment establishments developed to maintain worker health and performance contributed to broader understanding of occupational health and workplace wellness. The physical and emotional demands of entertainment work required systematic approaches to health maintenance and wellness promotion that influenced broader workplace health practices. The technology adoption and innovation activities that entertainment districts undertook to improve their operations and service delivery contributed to broader developments in technology application and business innovation. The competitive pressures and customer expectations associated with entertainment businesses created incentives for early adoption and creative application of new technologies. The partnership and collaboration strategies that entertainment establishments developed to work with other businesses and organizations contributed to broader understanding of strategic partnerships and collaborative business models. The complex supply chains and service networks required for successful entertainment operations created demand for sophisticated partnership management capabilities. The performance measurement and evaluation systems that entertainment establishments developed to monitor and improve their operations contributed to broader developments in performance management and organizational assessment. The complex and multifaceted nature of entertainment services required comprehensive approaches to measuring and evaluating performance across multiple dimensions. The continuous improvement and innovation processes that successful entertainment establishments used to adapt and evolve their operations contributed to broader understanding of organizational learning and adaptive management. The rapidly changing nature of entertainment markets and customer preferences required systematic approaches to identifying and implementing improvements and innovations. And as these various threads of innovation, adaptation, and cultural development wove together across centuries and continents, they created a rich tapestry of human organizational achievement that continues to influence how we approach complex social and commercial challenges today. The quiet accumulation of practical knowledge, the patient refinement of operational systems, and the continuous adaptation to changing circumstances that characterize these ancient establishments created foundations for understanding how human societies can organize themselves to serve multiple needs simultaneously while balancing competing interests and values. The systematic approaches to quality management, customer service, cultural programming, and community engagement that were developed in these contexts continue to inform contemporary best practices across a wide range of industries and institutions. The integration of commercial activity with cultural expression, social responsibility, and community development that characterize the most successful ancient entertainment districts continues to provide models for sustainable business development that creates value for multiple stakeholders while contributing to broader social and cultural advancement. The international perspective and cross-cultural competence that were developed in cosmopolitan ancient entertainment districts continue to be essential capabilities in our increasingly interconnected and culturally diverse global society. The adaptive management strategies and organizational flexibility that were refined in these complex and variable business environments continue to provide valuable guidance for contemporary organizations operating in rapidly changing and uncertain conditions. The emphasis on continuous learning, professional development, and quality improvement that characterize the most successful ancient establishments continues to influence contemporary approaches to organizational excellence and competitive advantage. The community integration and stakeholder engagement, approaches that were developed to maintain social acceptance and support, continue to inform contemporary understanding of corporate citizenship and social responsibility. The cultural innovation and artistic development that emerged from these establishments continue to enrich the broader stream of human cultural development that shapes our contemporary artistic and cultural traditions. The systematic approaches to training, education, and professional development that were pioneered in these contexts continue to influence contemporary educational and workforce development practices across many fields and industries. The customer relationship management and service excellence strategies that were refined in these relationship-intensive businesses continue to set standards for contemporary service delivery and customer satisfaction across many sectors. The operational efficiency and resource optimization techniques that were developed to manage complex multi-stakeholder operations continue to influence contemporary approaches to organizational management and business process improvement. The risk management and crisis response capabilities that were developed to handle the uncertainties and volatility associated with these businesses continue to provide models for contemporary approaches to business continuity and crisis management. The innovation and technology adoption strategies that were used to maintain competitive advantage and improve service delivery continue to inform contemporary approaches to business innovation and technology management. The partnership and collaboration approaches that were developed to manage complex supply chains and service networks continue to influence contemporary understanding of strategic partnerships and collaborative business models. The performance measurement and continuous improvement processes that were used to monitor and enhance operational effectiveness continue to provide frameworks for contemporary approaches to performance management and organizational development. And perhaps most importantly, the fundamental recognition that successful organizations must balance individual needs with collective welfare, private interests with public responsibilities, and immediate practical concerns with long-term cultural development continues to guide our contemporary efforts to create institutions that serve human needs while contributing to broader social progress and cultural advancement. As we drift towards sleep on this quiet night, we can take comfort in knowing that for thousands of years, human beings have been patiently working to create order from chaos, beauty from necessity, and lasting value from temporary arrangements. The gentle persistence of human cooperation and cultural development continues to echo through the halls of history, reminding us that progress comes not through dramatic gestures, but through the quiet accumulation of small improvements and the continuous refinement of our collective capacity to live and work together effectively. The ancient voices that whisper to us across the centuries speak not of scandal or sensation, but of the enduring human commitment to creating institutions that serve multiple purposes, balance competing interests, and contribute to the ongoing development of civilization itself. Their legacy lives on in every well-managed organization, every thoughtful approach to customer service, every systematic effort to balance individual freedom with collective welfare, and every patient attempt to create lasting value through the careful coordination of human effort and creativity. The gentle rhythm of historical continuity carries us forward through time, where these ancient organizational principles continued to evolve and adapt to new circumstances. Medieval European cities developed their own distinctive approaches to managing entertainment districts that reflected both practical necessities and changing cultural values. The rise of Christianity throughout Europe created new frameworks for understanding commercial sexuality and social organization. Rather than simply prohibiting activities that had been widely accepted for centuries, medieval authorities developed nuanced approaches that attempted to balance religious principles with practical urban realities. The result was a complex system of regulation and accommodation that varied significantly from one region to another. In medieval Paris, entertainment districts were officially designated and regulated by royal decree. The establishment of specific neighborhoods for various forms of commercial entertainment wasn't prudish segregation, but practical urban planning that minimized conflicts while providing necessary services for a growing urban population. These districts were required to maintain certain standards of cleanliness and order while contributing to municipal revenues through taxation and licensing fees. The guild system that governed most medieval crafts and trades extended to entertainment establishments as well. Professional associations developed training standards, quality requirements, and ethical guidelines that elevated commercial entertainment from random opportunism to organized professional activity. These guilds provided social protection for workers while ensuring consistent service quality for clients. Medieval London developed particularly sophisticated approaches to regulating what official documents diplomatically referred to as public hospitality establishments. The city's famous pragmatism extended to creating detailed ordinances that specified everything from building safety requirements to health standards for workers. These regulations weren't moral judgments, but practical public health measures designed to prevent the spread of disease while maintaining order in densely populated urban areas. The economic data preserved in medieval tax records reveals the significant contribution that entertainment districts made to urban economies. Beyond direct revenues from taxation and licensing, these districts generated employment for hundreds of people in related industries including food service, textile production, security services, and transportation. The multiplier effects of entertainment district spending rippled throughout medieval urban economies in ways that city administrators clearly understood and valued. Medieval German cities developed federal systems of regulation that allowed individual cities to adapt general principles to local conditions while maintaining consistency across broader regions. This flexibility enabled innovation and experimentation while providing frameworks for sharing successful practices between different communities. The Hanseatic League's commercial networks carried organizational innovations and management practices between entertainment establishments across Northern Europe. A successful approach to customer service developed in Hamburg might be adapted and refined in Bergen or Novgorod, creating continuous improvement through cross-cultural exchange and competition. Medieval Italian city-states became laboratories for experimenting with different approaches to urban planning and commercial regulation. Florence developed zoning systems that integrated entertainment districts into broader urban design schemes that balanced commercial activity with residential needs and religious observances. Venice refined approaches to international hospitality that accommodated the diverse cultural expectations of merchants and travelers from across the known world. The banking and financial innovations that emerged from medieval Italian commerce influenced how entertainment establishments managed their complex economic relationships. Credit systems, insurance arrangements, and international payment mechanisms allowed for more sophisticated business operations, while reducing risks associated with seasonal variations and economic uncertainty. Medieval Islamic cities continued to develop sophisticated approaches to entertainment district management that reflected both religious principles and practical urban needs. The Hispa system of market regulation evolved to include detailed oversight of establishments that provided various forms of hospitality and entertainment services, while ensuring fair pricing and protecting vulnerable individuals. Islamic legal scholarship during this period produced extensive discussions about the proper regulation of commercial entertainment that reveal remarkable attention to issues modern societies would recognize as consumer protection, workers' rights, and public health considerations. These scholarly debates influence practical regulation throughout the Islamic world, while contributing to broader legal and ethical theory. The architectural innovations developed in medieval Islamic entertainment districts reflected both practical needs and aesthetic values that elevated commercial spaces into culturally enriching environments. Sophisticated ventilation systems, acoustic design, and decorative elements created spaces that served multiple social functions while maintaining the cultural sophistication expected in Islamic urban centers. The patronage systems that connected Islamic entertainment districts with scholarly and artistic communities created sustainable funding mechanisms for intellectual and cultural activities that might not have been commercially viable independently. These partnerships between commercial establishments and cultural institutions created models for arts funding and cultural development that influenced broader approaches to cultural policy. Medieval Iberian cities, with their complex mix of Christian, Islamic, and Jewish populations, developed particularly innovative approaches to managing entertainment districts that served diverse communities with different cultural expectations and religious requirements. These multicultural environments required sophisticated approaches to cultural accommodation and conflict resolution that created models for managing diversity in urban settings. The translation movements that characterized medieval Iberian intellectual life also influenced entertainment district development, as ideas about organization, management, and cultural programming spread between different linguistic and cultural communities. Greek, Arabic, Latin, and vernacular sources all contributed to the development of increasingly sophisticated approaches to commercial entertainment management. Meanwhile, in medieval China, the entertainment district systems that had been developed during earlier dynasties continue to evolve and adapt to changing political and cultural circumstances. The Song dynasty period saw particular innovations in urban planning and commercial regulation that influenced entertainment district development throughout East Asia. Chinese approaches to seasonal programming and cultural calendar integration became increasingly sophisticated during the medieval period. Entertainment districts developed complex scheduling systems that coordinated with agricultural cycles, religious observances, and political events to maximize cultural impact while ensuring sustainable business operations. The civil service examination system that characterized Chinese government administration influenced approaches to professional development and career advancement within entertainment districts. Merit-based promotion systems and systematic training programs created pathways for talented individuals to achieve recognition and economic success through excellence in their artistic and interpersonal skills. The technological innovations that emerged from Chinese entertainment districts during this period influenced broader developments in urban infrastructure and commercial architecture. Innovations in lighting, heating, ventilation, and water management that were developed to create comfortable and attractive entertainment venues were later adapted for other types of buildings and urban planning applications. Medieval Japan continued to refine the pleasure quarter system that would eventually reach its full development in the early modern period. The integration of commercial entertainment with cultural programming and artistic development created uniquely sophisticated environments that served multiple social functions simultaneously. Japanese approaches to seasonal aesthetics and cultural programming became increasingly elaborate during the medieval period. Entertainment districts developed comprehensive cultural calendars that coordinated artistic performances, seasonal decorations, and themed celebrations with natural cycles and religious observances to create immersive cultural experiences. The craft guild systems that governed various aspects of Japanese society extended to entertainment districts through specialized training programs and quality standards that elevated commercial entertainment to the level of recognized artistic and cultural practice. These professional development systems created clear career pathways and social recognition for excellence in entertainment industry work. Korean entertainment districts during the medieval period developed their own distinctive characteristics that reflected both Chinese influences and indigenous cultural values. The integration of Confucian educational principles with commercial entertainment created environments that emphasized intellectual and cultural development alongside other forms of hospitality. The ceramic and textile innovations that emerged from Korean entertainment districts influenced broader artistic and commercial development throughout the region. The emphasis on aesthetic refinement and cultural sophistication that characterized these establishments created demand for high-quality decorative arts that stimulated broader artistic innovation. Southeast Asian entertainment districts during the medieval period reflected the region's position as a crossroads of international trade and cultural exchange. Indian, Chinese, Islamic, and indigenous influences combined to create distinctive approaches to commercial entertainment that accommodated diverse cultural expectations while maintaining local identity. The maritime trade networks that connected Southeast Asian entertainment districts with broader international commerce created opportunities for cultural exchange and innovation that influenced artistic and cultural development throughout the region. The cosmopolitan environments of major trading ports became laboratories for cultural fusion and creative adaptation. The spice trade that characterized Southeast Asian commerce during this period influenced entertainment district development through both economic opportunities and cultural exchange. The wealth generated by international trade supported sophisticated entertainment venues, while the cultural diversity of trading communities created demand for varied and adaptable forms of hospitality. Medieval African entertainment districts, particularly in major trading centers like Timbuktu and Cairo, developed approaches to commercial entertainment that reflected both Islamic principles and indigenous African cultural traditions. These establishments played important roles in facilitating trade relationships and cultural exchange between different African societies and international trading partners. The gold and salt trade networks that connected West African societies with North African and Mediterranean commerce supported sophisticated entertainment districts that served both local populations and international merchants. These establishments contributed to urban development and cultural sophistication throughout the region. The scholarly and educational traditions associated with African centers of learning influenced entertainment district development through integration of intellectual and cultural programming with commercial hospitality. The combination of commercial services with educational and cultural activities created environments that supported both trade relationships and intellectual exchange. As medieval period transitioned toward early modern developments, entertainment districts throughout the world began to adapt to new technologies, expanded trade networks, and changing social and political circumstances. The organizational principles and management innovations that had been developed during the medieval period provided foundations for even more sophisticated approaches to commercial entertainment and cultural programming. The printing revolution that began in the late medieval period influenced entertainment district development through improved communication systems, standardized documentation, and expanded access to cultural and educational materials. The ability to produce and distribute written materials more efficiently created new possibilities for advertising, cultural programming, and professional development within entertainment industries. The navigational and maritime technological advances that characterized the late medieval period expanded international trade networks and cultural exchange opportunities that influenced entertainment district development worldwide. The increased mobility of people, goods, and ideas created more cosmopolitan environments and greater demand for sophisticated international hospitality services. The monetary and banking innovations that emerged during the late medieval period provided more sophisticated financial instruments and commercial relationships that enabled entertainment establishments to develop more complex business models and operational strategies. Credit systems, insurance arrangements, and international payment mechanisms reduced risks while enabling larger scale and more sophisticated operations. The urban planning and architectural innovations that characterized late medieval city development influenced entertainment district design through improved understanding of crowd management, traffic flow, and environmental control. The systematic approaches to urban design that emerged during this period created more efficient and attractive environments for commercial entertainment. The legal and administrative innovations that characterized late medieval government development provided more sophisticated frameworks for regulating commercial entertainment, while protecting both workers and clients. The development of more systematic approaches to law enforcement and dispute resolution created more stable and predictable operating environments for entertainment establishments. The educational and cultural innovations that characterized late medieval intellectual development influenced entertainment district programming through integration of scholarly and artistic activities with commercial hospitality. The increased emphasis on education and cultural sophistication created new market opportunities while elevating the cultural impact of entertainment establishments. The military and political innovations that characterized late medieval state development influenced entertainment district operations through changing security requirements and international relationships. The development of more sophisticated approaches to international diplomacy and trade relationships created new opportunities for cultural exchange and commercial development. The agricultural and technological innovations that characterized late medieval economic development provided more stable food supplies and improved living standards that supported entertainment district development. The increased prosperity and urbanization that resulted from these innovations created larger and more sophisticated markets for commercial entertainment services. The religious and philosophical innovations that characterized late medieval intellectual development influenced entertainment district development through changing attitudes toward commercial entertainment and cultural expression. The increased sophistication of religious and philosophical thought created more nuanced approaches to balancing spiritual values with practical social needs. The artistic and cultural innovations that characterized late medieval creative development influenced entertainment district programming through new forms of musical, theatrical, and visual expression. The increased sophistication of artistic techniques and cultural programming created new possibilities for entertainment and cultural enrichment. As these various medieval developments laid foundations for early modern innovations, the entertainment districts of the world stood poised to enter new phases of sophistication and cultural impact. The organizational principles, management techniques, and cultural innovations that had been developed and refined over centuries of experimentation and adaptation provided robust foundations for responding to the challenges and opportunities that would emerge in the centuries ahead. The systematic approaches to quality management, customer service, cultural programming, and community engagement that had been developed through medieval experimentation continued to evolve and adapt to new circumstances while maintaining their fundamental effectiveness in organizing complex commercial and cultural activities. The international networks and cross-cultural competencies that had been developed through medieval trade and cultural exchange provided essential capabilities for navigating increasingly complex global relationships and cultural interactions. The adaptive management strategies and organizational flexibility that had been refined through centuries of responding to changing circumstances provided valuable frameworks for handling the accelerating pace of social, economic, and technological change that would characterize the early modern period. The integration of commercial activity with cultural expression and community development that had been achieved in the most successful medieval entertainment districts provided models for sustainable development that balanced multiple stakeholder interests while contributing to broader social and cultural advancement. The emphasis on continuous learning, professional development, and innovation that had characterized the most successful medieval establishments provided essential capabilities for adapting to new technologies and changing market conditions. The community integration and social responsibility approaches that had been developed to maintain social acceptance and support provided frameworks for managing the complex relationships between commercial enterprises and broader social communities. And so, the gentle rhythm of historical development continued, carrying forward the accumulated wisdom of centuries of human experimentation with organizing complex social and commercial activities. The quiet persistence of human cooperation and cultural innovation created foundations that would support even greater achievements in the centuries to come. As the ancient principles of systematic organization, cultural sophistication, and social responsibility continued to guide human efforts to create institutions that serve multiple needs, while contributing to the ongoing development of civilization itself. The soft whisper of historical continuity reminds us that progress emerges not from sudden transformation, but from the patient accumulation of small improvements and the continuous refinement of our collective capacity to work together effectively. The ancient voices that speak to us across the centuries carry messages not of sensation, but of the enduring human commitment to creating lasting value through careful coordination of individual effort and cultural creativity. And so we reach the end of our quiet journey through the institutional corridors of ancient history. Tonight we've traced the surprisingly systematic evolution of humanity's oldest commercial enterprises, from the carefully regulated temple complexes of ancient Mesopotamia to the sophisticated pleasure quarters of medieval Japan. What emerges isn't the scandalous narrative that popular imagination might expect, but something far more profound and, dare we say, comforting. These establishments weren't anomalies or aberrations in ancient society. They were integral components of urban life, woven into the fabric of commerce, law, culture, and community development, with the same methodical precision that characterized ancient approaches to agriculture, trade, and governance. The zoning laws, tax codes, quality standards, and professional development systems we've explored reveal civilizations that approached complex social challenges with remarkable sophistication and pragmatic wisdom. From Roman lupernaria to Chinese courtesan houses, from Greek symposiums to Japanese tea ceremonies, these institutions served as laboratories for innovations in customer service, urban planning, cultural programming, and international relations that continue to influence how we organize our communities today. The quiet efficiency of their management systems, the careful balance they achieved between individual freedom and social responsibility, and their integration of commercial activity with cultural expression created templates for sustainable development that remain remarkably relevant. Perhaps most remarkably, these ancient voices whisper to us not of sensation, but of the enduring human capacity to create order from chaos, beauty from necessity, and lasting institutions from the basic materials of social cooperation. Their legacy lives on in every well-managed organization, every thoughtful approach to balancing competing interests, and every patient effort to build something meaningful that serves both individual needs and collective welfare. As you drift towards sleep tonight, rest knowing that for thousands of years, human ingenuity has been quietly solving complex social challenges through systematic thinking, cultural sophistication, and the gentle persistence of cooperation. The same principles that guided these ancient establishments continue to shape our world today, reminding us that civilization advances not through grand gestures, but through the careful accumulation of practical wisdom and the continuous refinement of our capacity to work together effectively. Sleep well.